Hey everybody, it's the crew of Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media. I'm Jerry.
I'm Kira.
I'm Kit. And Ed.
Be sure to join your crew at Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media for our first annual food and toy drive at Patio Theater, that's 6008 Irving Park Road on December 23rd, starting at 5:30 p.m.
Folks, this is a big event. It's our first time ever food and toy drive.
We will be collecting shelf-stable canned food and new unwrapped toys to pass along to the Greater Chicago Food Depository and the Chai Gives Back Chicagoland Toy Drive.
This is a chance to do good for the people living here in the city of Chicago. Plus, it's the holiday spirit, so if you don't got it, get it. And if you don't get it, go figure it out.
We begin our live stream here in the lobby at 5:30 p.m. We will be greeting all of you good people that bring us canned food and toy donations.
Make sure to warm up your vocal cords because we start with a sing-along.
Solstice at 7, Home Alone at 8.
All you got to do for free admission to the show is bring
shelf-stable canned food or a toy. Help us help others.
Merry Christmas, and please join us.
It's the clone!
No! Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
They need the clown!
Get your hand off my penis!
I had a lot of fun with that Clone Cabello super edit for our December 23rd canned food and toy drive at the Patio Theater, which I hope all of you good people out in our audience will be able to join us for. December 23rd at the Patio Theater. We live stream at 5:30 where we will be greeting all of our viewers and attendees who are bringing canned food and new unwrapped toys for free admission to my film Solstice and Home Alone. So hope you can all join us out there. In the meantime, welcome to another Friday night edition of Chicago Corner. Want to welcome all of you good people to the show. At the top of the show, I also want to greatly thank Dominic Palella, who is our first Patreon supporter at $5 a month. So Dominic, thank you. We are always very, very grateful for all the support, financial and moral, that you give the show. And we hope that we can rally some of our other viewers in the live chatter who tune in or watch our show afterwards to contribute to our show as a patron on Patreon and have the opportunity to get honored at the top of the show for your contribution supporting us. So without further ado, I want to go into our first story before I bring on my co-hosts. So we covered the Mayoral Forum this week. And actually, you know what? I will bring on my co-host because we can all talk about this at the top of the show. First of all, let me welcome, and I hope it's not one of his clones that got away at the patio when we shot that promo, Mr. Kid Cabello.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, first of all, I don't know how that clone got out, but we need to do something to really reel them all in. Clearly, the laboratory is not locked down, and we got to address this clone crisis. Hey, Jerry, good to see you.
You too, Kit. And our co-host and moderator, Mr. Edward Heller. Ed, thanks for joining tonight, as always.
Happy to be here. Yeah, Jerry. That clone was the movie watching clone Flick Cabello, and we're still trying to track him down. We've been checking the different movie theaters in the general area, but he's very shifty. He's sneaky and he runs really fast.
Yes, he's a fast runner. So there you go. But there's a lot to unpack here, and what I want to say too, to everyone watching and supporting Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media, by supporting both Hardlands Media and Chicago Corner, you're building two Chicago independent media networks. So please share our content, Hardlands Media and Chicago Corner, on all your social media platforms. Get the word out there. I want Chicago to be the leading city in independent media. And I want to thank my colleague Jerry Vasilatos and Edward Heller for doing a phenomenal job with me on Tuesday when we were covering the mayoral town hall. I mean, that reminded me back of the old days when me and Daniel would be out there in the field. And Jerry, it was really great working with you, as well as our other colleague who was out there in the field with us too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we could pull it together. It was not a last minute deal because we were prepared for it. And I also want to thank Ed Bannon at the, my goodness, 38th Ward Democrats who facilitated things for us with the Copernicus Center, because the most important thing was getting a wired connection into their internet. So we were able to send out a stream. So now Ed Bannon is also running in the 38th Ward, and we're going to have him on the show soon. So I want to give a shout out to Ed. Thank him again. Great event that night. It was a real opportunity to face-to-face talk to some of the candidates. I also want to share what was fantastic was that apparently we were the only, I guess, news show that was out there to talk to candidates before they actually participated in the forum. And we had a lot of people taking pictures, getting attention for Chicago Corner, which was great. I want to also share some comments that we were very grateful to see on social media, if my computer cooperates, because for some reason it's acting a little bit sluggish tonight. Can you guys give me a moment here? And Oreo, I'm going to have to ask you to get on the floor instead of my keyboard. Let me see here real quick. Okay, here we go. Let me load this into the screen. Now this was phenomenal because, as our viewers know and as Kit knows, we all have a lot of respect for Case Study QB.
Mm-hmm.
And if the graphic will load, come on, baby, get down here. There we go. So let me just blow this up a little bit. This went out on social media. Great job doing on-the-ground interviews and reporting, Hardlands Media, Chicago Corner TV. We also got a nice shout out from, bring this one in. Of course, everything takes a while to load. I'm not sure why. Here we go. Good. Oh, no. That's for our file. That's for another commentary. Anyway, we were very, very grateful that people recognize the work that Chicago Corner is doing with Hardlands Media to get back out in the field. In fact, we will have our guests from Northside Democracy Now! On in a few minutes that covered the police district candidate forums. But before we go into that, in covering what happened at the Copernicus Mayoral Forum.
Yep. Boy, oh boy.
All right. So, list of who was there. Dr. Willie Wilson, Jamal Green, Cam Buckner, Johnny LaGalba.
Yep.
Brandon Johnson.
Yes.
And Roderick Sawyer we spoke with. Now, Sophia King also did arrive, as did Paul Vallis. But, not so strangely, Mayor Lori Lightfoot was a no-show. However,
Jerry, I got the story for that.
I know. Yeah, I'm going to queue up the picture for you because
I'm more happy to talk about it.
Yeah, that's something I was going to hand off to you.
Also, no Chewy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. That's true. No Chewy. However, Chewy did not have the absolute hubris to decide to wait for it. As my computer is queuing stuff up here. Oh, come on. What is going on here?
It's okay, folks. It's worth the wait. Trust me on it.
It's definitely worth the wait. It's definitely worth the wait if I get the picture open. Come on here, man. All right. Hold on. Well, you know what? Kit, why don't you? I'll bring the picture up.
All right, so
talk about what happened.
So while we're waiting for the picture to build up, because I took this photo, let me explain what was going on. So first and foremost, shout out to Jerry Vasilatos and the rest of the team at Chicago Corner, myself and the crew of Hardlands Media. We were covering this event and promoting on all of our social media pages. Now, Jerry obviously did majority of the interviews. I had the chance to interview Willie Wilson and all the other mayoral candidates. We interviewed 6 out of the 8 candidates that got there. The other 2, obviously traffic played a role in preventing a lot of the candidates from showing up earlier, which is a thing everyone should factor in. But nonetheless, we got 6 out of the 8 interviews, which I think is pretty good for a interview town hall, which I'm proud to say Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media was leading the way on that. That's why I'm saying if you support our networks,
Can I also
our platforms? So
brag a moment and say we had over 1,400 views in under 24 hours for our coverage of the forum, our pre-show, as well as the live streaming of the forum, which was phenomenal. Now, the other thing too is we had better audio than everybody else too, which was nice, which is what also helped draw more eyes on our channel to help us grow. So everybody like and subscribe.
That is correct.
Patreon, the whole spiel.
Yeah,
and
that's
briefly,
correct.
Kit, we got 6 out of 8 interviews. Other media organizations got 0 out of 8 interviews.
Exactly.
Because they weren't there.
Yeah. So
this was like the first big one, right?
Yes, it was.
Chicago Corner, yeah.
So
this should have been something everybody wanted to have their eyes on and see. But it sounds like someone's trying to...
I've seen this before, Edward. And so let me explain what's happening. And this is before, I had a chance to meet Jerry and you, Edward. I mean, I think maybe you might have been watching Hardlands Media at the time when Chicago Corner used to be a segment on Hardlands Media. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Chicago Corner was like a special segment area for our show. So in 2019, we were covering the mayoral debates. No one was really covering it as much as we were. And history seems to be repeating itself again. And my concern is that very few Chicagoans are going to be aware of, well, there's election happening. So as Jerry and I were wrapping up the interviews and we were getting ready to cover the town hall, I was moderating and monitoring the live stream, and Jerry took over for me. And I said to Jerry, hey, I need to step outside. I want to take photos of all the candidates' desks, all their areas, Dr. Willie Wilson, Jamal Green, et cetera, all the candidates there. What I wasn't expecting, though, was Lightfoot's campaign to be here in this image, and I took this photo. So what's going on here? So when I get there, I take all the photos, but then I take a photo of Lightfoot's desk, and I look at 2 young individuals, probably interns for the Lightfoot campaign, and I say to both of them, wait a minute, I had organizers tell me that Lightfoot wasn't showing up. Will Lightfoot attend this event? They both said no. And I said, well, it's kind of odd for the incumbent mayor to set up a desk and she's not going to be here. Will you be taking questions from the press or individuals about Lightfoot's campaign, what you guys are running on? And they said no. I said, well, gee, this is very odd. Again, you're here representing Lightfoot's campaign. You're not taking any questions and she's not here. This is extremely suspicious. To which then one of them said, very quietly, this is a very difficult job to do. Lightfoot's campaign and administration in a nutshell.
So, let me also quickly clarify. I think what Ed was speaking to, Kit, Hardlands and Chicago Corner were covering the mayoral debates in 2019. No, what was the last debate? Was it last mayoral function?
The mayoral election cycle was in 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
I think to speak to Ed's point, this is our first successful live stream from the field for Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
One of these events, which was a big deal for us. So
sure.
We the previous mayoral coverage, and we want to be on the ground live streaming more in the moment with these very, very urgent news stories. Now, what Lightfoot did have time to come out and go to, though? It's coming up. If my browser would be cooperative, let me take it down real quick because we don't want to fill the screen with empty, dead Twitter screen.
I like that Miguel H is saying this is a very difficult job to do, and I was like kind of taken aback, like, oh my goodness, I feel sorry for you interns working for Lightfoot's campaign, because the thing is, I wasn't expecting them to show up there.
No.
And I was
what kind of hubris do you have? You don't show up to speak. You send your minions to set up a table for you, and then won't even answer questions.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, they even walked away from the desk. I forgot to mention that to you. They walked away from it as soon as they set it up. They were like walking away from it. And this is the Copernicus Center, by the way.
I got a graph.
What,
I got it
what,
ready.
I got something ready. I got something ready. So what Lightfoot did have time for, though, the day after, I believe it was the day after the Mayoral Forum at the Copernicus Center was, she had time for a Facebook live stream to reporters. She had time to have a managed event with reporters. Now, I commented during this live chat on Facebook. Those are my comments. You see them?
Yeah, I see
Where
him.
was she at last night's Mayoral Forum with the other candidates? This is a controlled media event. The Queen is throwing crumbs to her social media lackeys. Ed Katz commented, increased transportation equals increased crime downtown. Now, I didn't realize this. Thank you, Ed, for going to that Mayoral chat to share with me later. Well, this is how my comments showed up to everybody else on Facebook.
Wow.
This hidden comment might include sensitive content or spam across all 3 comments. Is this Facebook, or is this Lori Lightfoot's flunkies on the other end of the Facebook chat flagging and preventing people? Now, you guys know there are laws against elected representatives from shutting down constituent commentary on social media. We know that what we posted there was not spam or misleading or whatever else they used to try to shut us down, because she was not at the forum the night before. Now, what else did she have time for? Do you have it loaded, Ed? Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got it.
I
Okay,
got it.
so what she had time. Okay, I'll share yours. Sorry, let's Ed, can you pop yours up?
Yeah.
That's what she said. Mayor Lightfoot did have time for a safe space forum. 2 days later, another managed event, and wow, her banner is all over that stage. This week,
You want to do the voice, or should I, Jerry?
Go ahead, Ed.
This week, we created a safe space at our annual Women's Spotlight Luncheon where women, including myself, Marielle Trump, and PM Palmieri, could freely speak about their role in shaping the landscape of identity politics.
Okay, first of all,
Thank
let me
you,
just say,
Identity Politics, for parsing that.
let me just say this here about Lightfoot. The fact that she didn't show up to that town hall gives
Answer
me
questions.
vibes.
Even questions, objective questions from everybody.
Yeah, it gives me pause to think this is a repeat of what Rahm Emanuel did in 2019, as he did not show up to the debates in town halls. So what I got to say to Lightfoot and her campaign is, what are you so afraid of? You have to go to a controlled safe space. Guess what? The world is not a liberal arts college center. It is not a liberal arts college campus. You got to take hard-hitting questions, and Lightfoot's administration has dropped the ball for the people of Chicago, and yet here she is hiding behind identity politics. She's hiding behind the fact that she's the incumbent, and she's hiding behind the fact that she feels she should not face off against the other candidates that are running in the 2023 Chicago City election. So what I have to say is, those 8 candidates showed up to that town hall at the Copernicus Center. Those 8 candidates, I assume, to however long their campaigns last, will show up at the next debates, town halls, and forums. So what I got to say this to the people of Chicago: do you want a leader that's going to lead this city, or hide in a safe space bubble and not take any critical questions? Because this city needs leadership. This city is still facing gentrification. This city is still facing racism. The city is still facing corruption at the highest levels, and this administration isn't doing a goddamn thing to help the people of Chicago.
Ed,
So-
can you ride Kit's levels, because I think we're phasing out with.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kit. That's all right. Just I know that we're a lot of there might be some distortion with your outrage, which I share.
Sorry. So what I just want to say, and I'll calm down,
Okay.
is that
Just calm down, Kit. This is Nancy Pelosi. Just calm down.
so what I want to say then is this: while some of the mayoral candidates, I don't agree with them, at least I will tip my hat to them and congratulate them for at least having the courage and the strength to come forward to the people of Chicago so that they can convince the voters that maybe they are a better candidate than Lightfoot, who's A-okay with this city falling apart.
Okay.
Lightfoot is okay with the city burning. Lightfoot is okay with corruption running amok. Lightfoot, who can't take criticism, who's so thin-skinned. We cannot survive as a city of under another 4 years under Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Simple as that.
Absolutely. I before we move into our first segment, also with Northside Democracy for America, I want to share some comments from Twitter, which I think were very salient. Luke Miller shared, "Sounds more like an echo chamber." Harry Heavyhand, "Must be cool to have a, quote, safe space in Chicago. Too bad your constituents can't have the same."
Yep.
Josh Houston shared, "Is that, quote unquote, safe space really protecting you, or is it protecting us from you?" Quote, "A safe space. It's everywhere else in the city that is unsafe." There's Lori Lightfoot's safe space. Somebody posted a funny Photoshop. Lee Isaker shared, "This isn't tone deaf at all." Anthony shared, "Why don't you just give up?"
She should just resign. There, simple.
Yeah.
Lightfoot has shown to me that she's feckless, she's a coward, and she has no backbone, soul, or heart. And she doesn't care about Chicago. She doesn't care about its people. She doesn't care about its history. She has to go. Simple as that. This isn't a debate. We cannot survive another 4 years of Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Well, I also want to share that I felt what I really enjoyed about that forum was the mutual respect, despite the fact the candidates are, they've got their own ideas and they're obviously running against each other. There was a great amount of respect shared amongst all of them. There was a great amount of openness. They were receptive to Ben Joravsky. Oh, by the way, I also want to thank Ben Joravsky, who moderated the forum. He did a great job. That was,
Jimmy Dore says hello.
That's right. Yeah, I know. Jimmy Dore says hello to Ben Joravsky. But he moderated the event. He asked questions from across Chicago, as we did. I also want to thank Ed for keeping really good care of our Chicago manifesto, because I presented it to every mayoral candidate that we interviewed. Now, I don't know if they actually took it seriously enough to read.
Oh, I hope so. I actually was
one of them.
Glad that I managed to reorganize it like days before you decided to print them all out and hand them out to the guys. I didn't even know you were going to do that.
Well, it was inspiration.
Awesome.
It was an inspiration knowing we had the opportunity in the moment. Plus, how else were we going to prove that we passed it along and shared with them that the Chicago Corner Manifesto represents all of the concerns of citizens and our viewers in Chicago, and they need to pay attention to those issues. So many of the candidates we spoke to, I get a good sense that they're going to want to come on the show, and I'm going to ask them, did you look at the homework I gave you? Because this is the stuff we want to talk about in our interviews with these mayoral candidates. Now,
imagine that thing basically started with me ranting about potholes.
Yeah.
But it's grown. It's got so much great stuff in there, and it's like, and then when we hear all the candidates talking about the things, and I'm like, did they take that out of the manifesto, or are we just thinking along the same lines? And I'm like, okay, so maybe we'll get some feedback on that.
I think a lot of the candidates did have their ear to the ground because there are a lot of progressive ideas in the current slate of candidates. But yeah, there were some things that we've compiled that we've maybe slipped past them, and we want to make sure that they're aware of all the stuff we've compiled. Ed, I'm going to rely on you to moderate and share comments from our live chat, because I'm juggling a lot of stuff over here. But I want to share now, also happening this week was the Northside Democracy for America Police District Commission Forum that was hosted by Northside Democracy for America. Now, what are these district councils? Now, as described by the Chicago.gov website, in July of 2021, the Chicago City Council passed an ordinance creating a new model for police oversight, accountability, and public safety. The ordinance creates two bodies, a citywide community commission for public safety and accountability with power to advance systemic reform in district councils, which will be elected in each police district and work to improve policing and public safety in the district. The commission and district councils will bring police officers and Chicago residents together to plan, prioritize, and build mutual trust, strengthen the police accountability system, give Chicagoans a meaningful new role in oversight, and explore and advance alternative effective approaches to public safety. District councils will be created in each of the city's 22 police districts. They will be made of up to 3 people elected in regular municipal elections every 4 years, though anyone can participate in district council work. And the more people who participate, the more effective the district councils can be. This is kind of a precursor to what we want with an elected school board.
The first district council elections will be in February of 2023, when Chicagoans will also vote for candidates for aldermen and the mayor. The district council will have several key roles, building stronger connections between the police and the community at the district level. Collaborating in the development and implementation of community policing initiatives, holding monthly public meetings, working with the community to get input on police department policies and practices, working to develop and expand restorative justice and similar programs in the police district, ensuring that the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability gets input from the community, and nominating members of the Community Commission. Now, one of the things that Daniel and I and Kit, you were in on that meeting. Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the things that Kit and I discussed with the representatives for Northside Democracy for America was, will these neighborhood district commissions have teeth? Because I think ultimately, and I might be wrong, and our guests will hopefully correct me if I am, though I think they will nominate those to the higher body. I think that the mayor will have the authority to approve who's in the higher body that's going to listen to the local districts. Now, let's see if I'm remembering that correctly. Now, I want to welcome to our show Becky Levin and Mr. Joe Fedorko. I'm going to take our there. Thank you, Ed. So both of you, thank you for joining the show, and thank you for what Northside Democracy for America did in being able to host that forum and share candidates that want to work on the local level. Unfortunately, I was not able to watch those forums because we were covering the mayoral forum. I'm going to stop talking and ask the two of you. Let me ask Becky first, if you can provide some insight into what the whole objective was of hosting these video forums, which for our viewing audience, you can view on Northside Democracy for America's Facebook page. It's linked in our show notes below. Watch it later, not now. But Becky and Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So as you mentioned, we have 22 police districts in Chicago, and each police district is going to be electing 3 people to this new role of police district council. So that's 66 new elected positions that are going to be created, which is potentially really good for little d democracy. It's also, because it's a brand new structure, and because we know there are groups like the FOP who will be looking to co-opt this structure.
Fraternal Order Police, to make sure.
Okay. Making sure that that the voters know about this new structure, and that they're looking to elect folks who are committed to transparency, who are committed to this role and accountability, who are reform-minded rather than of the mindset that, the old school way we've traditionally always done policing is the way to go. It's going to be really critical to elect the right folks to these roles. So, Northside Democracy for America, our values are to support socially progressive, fiscally responsible, and ethically committed elected officials, right? And if you think about what we need in oversight of the police, we need progressiveness in terms of reform minded, right? We need fiscal responsibility. We as a city put an awful lot of money into public safety, and I don't think anyone feels like we're getting the bang for the buck right now. And don't even get us started on ethics when it comes to policing in this city.
Joe, your comments?
Well, as the first thing to point out, I think it is important, that is, we focused on where we live, the North Side. And those, I believe, was 8 districts that we covered over 2 evenings. There are, I was an English major, so you can do the math. There are other districts, West Side, South Side, that are having some of these same elections. And we certainly hope that maybe groups like Chicago Corner or other groups will cover those as well. Listening, it was interesting. I'm in, I want to say, the 19th district. We have 8 people running for the 3 spots. So that's going to be pretty competitive. There was, I want to say, the 17th, which is a crazy district. It has everybody from Carlos Rosa to Jim Gardner. And, yeah, and that is one of the...
You know how I knew Gardner was at that mayoral forum in the lobby?
Oh, he was there?
He was there. I caught a whiff of sulfur in the air.
I looked, and there he was.
Yeah. And I have to say, there are really two competing groups, and that is district where, not surprisingly, FOP has a group or a slate ready to run. And then the most unusual one was the district that includes, I want to say, Logan Square. There are only 2 candidates in that district. Now, one of them was a really sharp activist going all the way back to Occupy Chicago. And one of the things they explained is when they get in, they will be able to pick the 3rd representative for that district. So it's a very wide range. And like you said, Jerry, this is absolutely a dry run for the local school boards. I was impressed. We had several people that helped write the ordinance. We have a lot of folks. There were a lot of folks that were very articulate about. I'm forgetting the term. Becky, restorative justice, and explain it. And even a couple of people that kind of explained, look, there are a lot of police, but there's just nuts and bolts things they're not doing, like clearing cases. Like not enough detectives. Like, sorry, Dick Wolf, but all those Chicago all those Chicago PDs and Streets and Sand and Chicago Public Library stuff, that's not real. And
that's a new show that they should produce, Chicago Streets and Sand. I can contact somebody at Cinespace.
Absolutely. So this is where these folks are going to be trying to get elected. Where groups where we are certainly helped. I think we're the first, and to the best of my knowledge, the only group running the forums and trying to educate everybody, first of all, that they exist and how they can be used going forward.
Now, those local district commissions will nominate those to the higher body that actually takes the advice and the requests from the local district commissions.
Yes.
Yeah. So walk us through that. That's the thing I wasn't completely clear on.
Yeah. So my understanding is that so each district council will send one person to a nominating committee, essentially. So you'll have this nominating committee made up of 22 district council representatives. That group will put together a list of 14 nominees to the citywide commission. And then from that list of 14, the mayor will be able to select 7 people.
That's the part I worry about. Although I'm hoping that 14-person commission is going to be under pressure from the local districts to do what they're requesting without the mayor controlling things. Or when I say controlling things, making sure to place the people that she knows are malleable to what she wants. Now, that's presuming Lightfoot wins.
I was about to say it. In fact, it also presumes, like going back to the 17th district with Sam Nugent is another old school relic of the machine, and Jim Gardner as one of the candidates, Steve Spagnuolo, who used to be one of our steering committee members, pointed out there are elections in those wards too. And those alders are up for election, and so because there's so many other aldermanic seats wide open, particularly on the north side, it can be an opportunity if people take advantage of it and voters take advantage of it.
In Kit and my conversation with you, because we were hoping we could participate in also co-live streaming, but we weren't able to because of the commitment with the Mayoral Forum and just some other issues. But what was the point that there was a concern of making sure that Fraternal Order of Police candidates that would pretty much rank and file follow what Catanzara and the Fraternal Order of Police would want on a local level. I guess I don't think there was any concern to like prevent their participation, but
there was.
There was? Okay, so why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, we did not allow every candidate to participate.
There was a vetting process.
Yeah, so we focused on 8 districts. There were, I think, about 45, 46 candidates who filed petitions across those 8 districts. I sent an email to all of them with basically a short survey. It asked them to describe themselves and why they're running, basically in the length of a tweet. and then had 3 multiple choice questions. So anyone who said that they were completely opposed to the movement to defund police, and we put movement in quotes, or we put defund police in quotes, and we specifically referred to a movement, right? Anyone who says, I'm completely opposed to this Black and brown led movement, we're like, you aren't the right person to connect across different perspectives in your community. We didn't invite them. Anyone who said that the public safety function is solely a police function as opposed to police and community combined, or primarily a community function, we said no, not a good fit. And anyone who said that the Empowering Communities for Public Safety ordinance, the ordinance that created this structure, anyone who said the ordinance went too far in providing civilian oversight, we said thanks, but no thanks. So we ended up with 20 out of the 46 candidates participated in the forum.
Now, I know there was also a concern with probably very well-intentioned candidates, but the possibility that, in their idealism and being neophytes, they might not be the right people to join these councils. So what was your perspective on, I guess, the slate of candidates you did approve as far as their qualifications and their experiences? Is all of them, I mean, I guess part of the forum was like vetting their experience and hearing what they had to say. But from your perspective, were there a lot of people with promise that had experience and can't potentially get in over their heads?
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, I'll take it one step further because I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman, the guy who he was our last speaker on Tuesday's forum.
David Orlikoff. One of the things he pointed out, and we found this to be very true, is that there were quite a few people that candidates that we talked about, that we interviewed, that were not only first-time candidates, which is to be expected, but in their 20s, in their 30s. A couple, I think, fresh out of college, and they're just beginning. But they already have experience organizing. They already have experience in the communities. They already have experience with a lot of these issues. One of the things that this particular set of candidates in this election is starting to open up is kind of building out the farm system for potential candidates down the road. People with really good, deep roots in the neighborhoods that they're running in. People who are really open to talking to everybody. There were quite a few people that just said, if we got to the point where these councils could help the neighbors talk to each other, the neighbors talk to the police, bring back that old thing where the beat cops live in the neighborhoods.
That's an important. We brought that.
That's where a lot of this. That's where a lot of the reform can start to happen, and a lot of these candidates are very interested in. And to hear them, you do kind of get the sense that if they're successful both running and being in these councils, we may see some of these folks in the years to come become leaders.
You mentioned, when you were talking about the mayor before Joe and I joined, you talked about her lack of, I think it was backbone, heart, and soul. And we definitely had plenty of that across our 20 candidates. We also, I think it's really important to mention, there are a number of candidates who participated in the forums who are themselves victims of crime, candidates who've lost family members to gun violence, candidates who've been victims of police violence. So a lot of people with really, really important lived experience to bring to the table as well.
We asked that question of some of the candidates we were able to speak to on Tuesday in regards to, legislating or instituting a rule that police officers need to live in the communities that they police. So there's more of a bridge that they're not looking at unknown faces as the enemy. They're looking at them as neighbors, and they're working together in collaboration. Interestingly enough, I don't remember if it was Sawyer or Buckner who said, well, you really can't enforce that. And I'm like, well, then how's it going to have any teeth to make sure?
I think the city used to a few years ago.
Well, you have to live in the city, but here's
the neighborhoods. Thing. Yeah, not just right. You do have
not just the city, but a neighborhood.
So, a specific neighborhood. Yeah.
So here's the potential downside of that, right? a lot of police officers, do come from Chicago. A lot of them have grown up in Chicago, have grown up in neighborhoods with high levels of community violence, have unresolved trauma from that. A lot of police officers have gone through the military and they have unresolved trauma from that, right? And so sometimes when you plop these folks into the communities, like when they're living and working in the community, there's this mindset of kind of falsely telling themselves, well, I got over my baggage, so why can't you get over your baggage?
Wow.
And they potentially crack down harder.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Becky?
Yeah.
I would think that there should be a vetting process with cops then in their background check. Because you know what? If I was a cop, and at one time in my life when I had 2 good legs, I always aspired to, it would be cool to be a cop to help people, to do detective work, to solve investigations. If I were going to be a cop, I'd want to live in the community that I was policing, not with the attitude of, well, I got out of here, so what's your problem? It should be more, I want us to like all be successful here and work together to watch each other's backs. And I'm here as a police officer. I see what's going on here, and I want to be proactive, and I want to be accessible, and I want to work with the community as a law enforcement representative to bring us together. That's really a lot. It's sad and I guess I can understand when you mentioned what the reasons are for some police officers perhaps feeling that way, but then you go to the vetting process and the background checks. And I think that unfortunately too, Becky, my perception is the vetting process for CPD is very, very low. I've heard stories of like high IQ candidates who are turned away because they're critical thinkers and because they're not just going to be those that follow orders, rank and file. They might use some actual objective critical thinking while they're in the field.
I think that has probably happened quite frequently.
And then,
it's a shame, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, I noticed there was a question that flashed.
Restorative justice.
Yes, because that's a question we had in our last NDFA meeting on Wednesday with an aldermanic candidate, and it may not. Becky, can you kind of, because I asked the question because I wasn't sure, but it's a phrase that I've heard used a lot.
Sure. So in our
traditional... And let's also pop that up and thank, where is it here? Kathy Powers.
I think it was Kathy Powers. Hi, Kathy.
Yeah. You know Kathy?
Nice to see your name come across the screen. I do know Kathy.
She's got it. So, yeah, I think Ed's got it. The question was, for those who, there you go. Please explain restorative justice. Many don't know what that is.
Yeah, so our traditional justice processes, right, it basically looks at there's one person who caused harm and one person who was harmed. And the idea is to punish the person who caused the harm. But it's really rare that this harm is just this, one directional, one person caused harm to one other person. And a lot of times, whether you're talking about violent crime or property crime or just how we treat each other, it can be a whole group of people, a whole community of people who's affected by it. And so restorative justice really asks the question, well, what harm was done, asks it more broadly, and says what needs to be done to rectify the harm, instead of this purely punitive thing. And one thing we know is that, especially with young people, a lot of young people who are acting out, who are causing harm to others, who are engaged in violent activities, have themselves been harmed, right? So just punishing them doesn't actually do anything to get at how they came to that. So a lot of restorative justice also asks basically, what happened to you? And how can that harm be healed?
Sadly, we don't have enough proactive efforts that can help prevent people from the choices that they make that lead to crime and then having to like fix it afterwards, which is, we talk about all of the money that's being poured into the police budget, but it's not lowering crime. Well, what if you started putting that money into reopening mental health clinics, investing in the communities? I really hate the phrase defund the police. It should be reallocate resources. A lot of people say, oh, what are you, for anarchy? No, it was just like a bad branding.
Are you running for one of these police councils, Jerry? Because you sounded very much like one of those candidates right there. Honest to God.
Well, I haven't even thought about that, but if I had the time, I'll have to check my calendar. Thank you for that. I want to pass the Kit, though. Oh, I'm sorry. After Becky speaks, I know that Kit probably has some questions, and I don't want to dominate the segment. And Ed, I'm hoping that they have some thoughts and questions that they have for both of you. But Becky, if you want to share what you were just about to say.
When it comes to this question of reallocating, right, we don't have a good handle on like what level of policing and what police functions are actually effective in creating community safety. We also don't do nearly a good enough job of evaluating the various programs and services that are supposed to help make communities safer and then bringing those to scale. I'm a big data nerd, right? So I want to basically measure it all, and then we stop doing the things that don't work and do more of the things that do work. It seems pretty common sense to me. And as a taxpayer, it's what I'd like to see.
I think so much of what we talk about here that I also shared with the candidates and Kit did. I forgot what the topic was. Oh, it was Jamal Green who was talking about the public banks. And, as he explained to our audience what public banks were and how it would benefit the city and the communities, more importantly, I'm like, of course, nobody else is pursuing it because it makes too much sense. So I think that we need to really lean on what makes too much sense and start beating people over the head with baseball bats. Oh, maybe not going that far, but you know what I mean, metaphorically. Kit.
All right. Well, first, I'm loving where this conversation's going, and we need to really have more conversations about what will encompass all of 2023. Now, here's where I'm going to bring my question in, and so just give me a moment to have the floor. In 2019, Chicago Corner was a segment on Hard Lens Media. The people we interviewed on the street, when it came down to, hey, who's running for aldermanic offices or who's running for mayor, a lot of average citizens were saying they didn't know that there was an election taking place. And I think Jerry can back me up on this one too, and Edward, you too as well. But 2019, while Lightfoot did get a majority of people supporting her in a landslide victory, it was the lowest voter turnout in Chicago city election history.
30%, which means that if she won by more than half of that, only 16% of the city want her leading us.
Now,
really quick interjection. I don't know if I'd call it a landslide, because if Preckwinkle hadn't done that soda tax, I think it would have gone the other way.
Now, here's where I'm going with this one. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, the mayoral election is going to take the front and center card. So what I want to ask Joe and Becky, obviously you two are with NDFA. People will probably pass over or ignore or dismiss this coverage that you did. So as an organization, what are you guys going to do to really bring more attention to this key election? And while it is a small seat, it is important because it plays a bigger role in Chicago infrastructure. What are you guys going to do to really bring more attention to this election that's taking place? Because I'm willing to bet your friends, your neighbors don't even know that next year, which will be 2023, is going to be our city election. It'll be the primary part of it. I mean, we got to bring more attention to Chicagoans that, hey, it's now just the mayor that's running. There's aldermanic seats, and there's also police accountability taking place. So, Joe and Becky, if you want to take the lead, what are you guys prepared to do to really bring more awareness to this election that's going to be taking place, and especially for police accountability, which is desperately needed?
It's a huge issue. I ran for state rep earlier this year, and when I knocked on doors, I just had to introduce myself. I have friends who are running for police district council, and every time they knock on someone's door, the first thing they have to do is spend all this time even explaining what police district council is. I know one of the things that I'm really interested in, since we hosted these two forums and we're able to hear from some great candidates, and then NDFA has a lot of people who are very politically involved who will be able to connect with those candidates and help them out with their campaigns. Some other groups have reached out to me. We had someone on last night's forum who's planning on doing something similar on the South Side. And I said, hey, let me give you all the stuff that we did. We'll give you the playbook for how to do this. Someone from She Votes Illinois is thinking about doing something like that. You know, maybe they could do something for women candidates. So wherever we can help with breaking down any barriers to having a forum like that, I'm certainly very willing to do that.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm in the 48th Ward, which at the beginning of 2022, we presumed we wouldn't have a race at all. There are now 10 candidates running because our alderman Harry Osterman decided not to run. There are more open seats, again, around the city for the aldermanics than there ever have been. So on the one hand, we've got a lot of people knocking on doors and a lot of people at the most local level, at the way you see it, with people you see all the time. We were fortunate in that in 2019, we actually do have a core of really good progressives that are now in city council. Maria Haddon, Matt Martin, Andre Vasquez, Rosana Rodriguez,
Byron Sicho Lopez.
Byron Lopez. And so there's something to build on. The mayoral is interesting because I realize you were right. I think, the way I was going to say with Lori is she got a landslide of those that turned out, and that's absolutely right.
And she bamboozled us too, though. That's the thing is I voted for her because she was a progressive reformer, and she's the neoliberal. She's the neoliberal Democratic tool of the larger nationwide Democratic Party, which may I also just throw in really quickly. There's a reason Chuy Garcia jumped in the race. It was either to hedge against Lori so the Dems still have control over Chicago, or to basically dilute and spoil the votes amongst the other candidates who actually had the balls to step in sooner and challenge Lightfoot with their progressive platforms.
Well, that and he got the trade unions to back him up. Otherwise, he wouldn't be running.
True.
There's no doubt about that. But, I think the other thing I would observe, because I moved to Chicago in '84, so I got lucky when got to see Harold Washington and that whole. I mean, it was crazy, but Harold was quite a thing. And then what did we have before? What did we have after? The Daily Machine.
Same.
And I think there's something to be said for a city that for so long has been part of a machine to figure out what it's like not to have one. Rahm tried to create his own machine. That's basically what he did.
That's very true.
And honestly, we now know because Chuy was the fourth choice, and he got him to a runoff and forced Rahm to break out a fuzzy blue sweater to pull out that second. If they pull out that re-election campaign.
God, I hated those sweat.
Oh God, tell me about it.
Yeah.
My
Oh
sister,
my God.
I love my sister. She's a Trumper, but we agree on loathing Rahm.
Can we take a moment here, though, to all celebrate the departure of Rahm Emanuel?
Yes,
I would
now
like
Godzilla,
to thank the
please
great
do
mayor
your
of
part.
the city of
and
Chicago,
squash-
Mayor Emanuel, for help making this happen today.
Is it this finger? Is it that finger? That middle finger? I forget which one. You're muted, Jerry.
No.
Okay.
Jerry. You want number one, you are muted, and number two, wrong one. You got to bring up the one.
Okay, Ed or Kit. I know. I'm running the board. I got it.
Yeah.
I know. You jumped the gun on what I was going to show, but we will share. How Rahm failed upward to the ambassadorship of Japan.
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
You missed me, sucker.
Okay, I figured you'd go with the Tiny Dancer reference. Okay, that's fine.
Well, I call him the 9-digit midget.
Yeah.
No, I call Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot is Rahm Emanuel 2.0, 2 inches shorter.
Yeah, we can discuss. I've got a personal theory about that, but I'm not going to talk about it now. I'll just say, though, I think citywide, there is this. I mean, I talk to friends that are with the Chicago Teachers Union, and they have a very active political arm. They're kind of open about saying, well, we want to create our own little political machine. And I kind of go, have we not learned? This is a bad idea.
Yeah, look, it's got to. I'm very much in support of the teachers, and I'm glad that they had an important hand in selecting a candidate. And I think Brandon Johnson is well intentioned. I don't think he has the charisma, but if Brandon Johnson's selection has everything to do with the Chicago Teachers Union wanting to form another branch of power, look. Why don't you focus more on getting the support of citizens to support what you're doing as teachers as you serve everybody? We shouldn't have these. We have to be the powerful dominant force here when you've got all of Chicago to serve.
I will say, and then I'll be quiet, but I will say one thing about CTU though is they have a lot of aldermanic candidates that they have trained very well. They are very sharp, very polished
glad to hear
candidates,
that.
and some of them are going to win, and some of them will be very effective. So they are doing
And you're
that.
hearing from one after us.
I know. Oh,
we are. Yeah. No. Look, I'm not against. I think that the teachers union has more good sense about finding the candidates and supporting the candidates to run for alderman that do have the interests of all citizens in every ward in mind, along with the most important issues in regards to protecting and serving students. So I don't have a problem with that. But when you mentioned, Joe, that like, haven't we learned already to create another kind of machine, that's where it kind of gets out of control. Because then if you have a few at the top controlling that machine, we have the same recurring problems we've seen with what Rahm tried to do and what the Dailies did before him.
Mm-hmm.
That's, my just my humble opinion on that. But, in conversation, I don't think there's a right or wrong to it.
I think Lori would do it if she could get along with people better.
Oh, she's been trying to do it.
And that's the issue.
Yeah. I think that she's been trying to do that, but she's got the power of the larger National Democratic Party behind her. Look, they're thinking about running her for governor, not because they wanted to win as governor after she leaves the fifth floor, but so they can position her nationally as a potential candidate for Congress. Why? Because she's black, she's a woman, and she's a lesbian. Honestly, that's what the Democratic Party put in front of podcasters and media people out in New York, as shared with Shane Coughlin at Kerberos Media with us.
Well, they don't have. I don't think they have the pulse. I think Lori's in trouble.
Well, I think she's in trouble, but I think that they're figuring out where to possibly look. Well, if Chewy gets in, then they shuffle Lori somewhere else because she's a loyal Democratic operative. That's what I'm saying. It's like pawns on a chessboard.
Well, Jerry, to your point, especially when we talk about Lightfoot, look, here's the thing. The only thing she has working in her favor is that a lot of Chicagoans, number one, don't know when election's taking place, which is our civic duty to remind people that, hey, 2022 is going to be a city election. But number two, there's a lot of people burnt out by electoral politics who just don't care. And the thing is, we got to get people informed to know what's happening, because
are you still there, Kit? I'm sorry. Did Kit freeze up?
Kit's frozen.
Kit's frozen. All right. Well, Kit, I don't know if you see or hear, your connection is a little bit hinky. I'm going to take Kit off and hope that he's able to restore his connection and then join us in a moment. Just so we Oriole joined us instead.
But essentially, Kit is saying that we got to tell people that the local elections are way more important than the national elections. There's a whole lot more you can do on the ground on the local level. You can, you got to make sure that people are aware that we have a situation where, what do we got? 9 candidates running for mayor. We got all these new candidates running for alderman. We got like 15 plus aldermen retiring. So we got fresh seats open. We got all these positions. We got the, not to mention, all the police district council positions and all the other positions that are now available. All these local things that you can do if you're interested in helping your city out. These are the types of things that you can do. You can, if you're not running, you can maybe help somebody run, or you can at least let your friends and neighbors know that there's an election coming, and that they should at least, tune in somewhere like, I don't know, someplace like Chicago Corner or some other local news source, but preferably Chicago Corner, where we'll give some analysis on these candidates and these positions and the issues that maybe we should be paying attention to, so that we don't get blindsided when the election comes and goes, and then all of a sudden all these new things or rules or laws or whatever are enacted, and we're like, why did they do that? Well, you weren't paying attention to the guys that got elected in office, and they went and did some shady stuff again. That's how we got the Chicago machine to begin with. That's how they got away with restoring the Chicago machine after Harold was gone. And we're letting it happen because people are losing interest in politics.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit, and that's thankfully being with a group like Northside Democracy for America. We see candidates, and we ask and I tend to be the one that asks, how do you win? And we've got people. for all of the high-tech stuff, it's door knocking. It's talking to people at the L. It's
what Kathy says below.
Politics. Yeah, retail politics one-on-one. That's the advantage of having so many candidates and so many open seats. My hope is, I can't imagine, again, at least on the north, at least with a lot of the wards on the north side, that they don't know that there are open aldermanic seats, because there are a lot of people knocking on doors right now. Maybe not right now because it's cold, but they're doing that right now. And all politics is local. You build it up from there. That's who, again, we try to support people that are doing that, definitely ground up. We're going to hopefully, we're going to be putting together a mayoral forum, and we're going to ask our members, who would you like to see? And we'll try to get them there, and we'll see who comes, and we'll go from there.
I'm telling you right now, Joe, we're all over live streaming that for you here from Chicago Corner. So let's talk afterwards, because I'd love to be able to live stream another forum and have a little bit. I mean, I was happy.
It'll be a smaller group, I'm sure, but
okay. It doesn't have to be big, but we want to be able to have our fingers on the pulse of that, and also be in a position to perhaps ask some questions. So if we can, I'm certainly not going to invite myself, but hopefully we can participate in that also, because this is what we want to do here. And as Kathy says, talk to people on buses. Word of mouth works well. We all have a civic duty. So hopefully we can at least share what your efforts are there, or participate. Before we move on, because we do have.
I'm back.
Sorry
about that. My internet went down. But all I was trying to say before I was cut off. I mean, like, how much more was I allowed to say before I was cut off?
I don't remember where you dropped off, but Ed kind of picked it up for you, and I do know that we have our other interview, interview guest ready.
One of our endorsed candidates, by the way.
That's right. Actually, well, why don't we bring him in? Hey,
sure.
Mr. Mueze Bawany.
Hey, Mueze.
Starting early.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you for joining us tonight. Mueze, before we move into your interview, I want to really quickly ask Becky and Joe if there are any other thoughts that they want to leave us with in regards to the forums that they hosted, and also Ed and Kit, if you have any closing questions. Let's start with Becky and Joe. If there are any parting thoughts you want to share that we may not have covered.
Yeah, so one of the things that really struck me from the forums, and a big part of the role of police district council is to be that conduit of community voice, right, and to facilitate conversations and places where people can have these tough conversations, right? If there was an easy answer to make our communities safer, we would probably already be doing it. This is not an easy conversation. So I really appreciated a lot of the candidates talking about plans to really dig deep, how they plan to continue knocking on doors, to Kathy's suggestion, talking to people on buses, talking to people at the grocery store, talking to people wherever they are. And that this is a group of candidates, a lot of them really do come from an organizing background. And I think their commitment to just creating connections in community is something that's really exciting, and something that I'm really looking forward to having those 66 folks in office.
Joe.
So, well, I'm going to take a second. First of all, Becky put this together. Becky contacted the candidates. Becky put the questionnaire together. Becky did the Q&A. All power and all thanks to Becky for the police forums. Secondly, to Kit and Daniel, you guys helped NDFA survive COVID. We were able to continue our meetings weekly because Hardlands and 99 Perspectives have been streaming our meetings. Again, getting the word out there, with our group and with people that see us. So thank you guys. Thank this organization for being able to do that and to continue to do that. And then the only other thing, this is somewhat counterintuitive. So Democracy for America was a national organization that came out of the Howard Dean campaign. And we discovered this week through a Politico article that the National Democracy for America organization is folding. But Northside Democracy for America is not. We are still going to be here. We are still going to be working. We are already planning this year, including doing, we're talking about doing a candidate training, which we've done in the past. not just candidates, but candidate workers. I've been joking to the committee that, hey, we get to be free agents. If another group would like to help us out with some of the electoral stuff we do. But it's, again, all politics is local. Again, 99 Perspectives and the Hard Lenses helped us do that. And so we try to do it as well so that we can help candidates like Mr. Bawany. So again, thank you, all of you. Like you said, there's an election in February. We're all getting, and there'll be another election after that. So here we go.
So what I want to say is we were more than happy to help out NDFA, especially during COVID. Look, we need voices here in this city. It's desperately needed. People to reach out to communities and so we can build alliances, and more importantly, let the people of Chicago know, like, hey, there's elections taking place. Hey, it's not only just mayor and aldermanic seats that should be the main focus of your attention. There should be other elections too. And what we do hope here at Hard Lens Media, Chicago Corner, 99 Perspectives is that we as Chicagoans become that example for other cities and towns to follow, where we have civically minded people from the north side to the south side to the west side, ready to actually stand up and fight for this city. You know, I'm tired of seeing the propaganda from Fox News saying that this is a dangerous city and that it should be just dismissed. There are good people here in Chicago, and NDFA is one of the many few organizations that's out there trying to do good. So we're glad that you guys are doing these community outreaches, and now more than ever, we need people to step up, especially for this 2023 election, because voter turnout is going to be so fundamentally important. This will be not the most important election year of our lifetime, but it will be one that has major significance, especially if we want to survive, because the current leadership just doesn't work.
And just remember, if you would like to see these forums, they are currently streaming on our Northside Democracy for America Facebook page. You don't have to be a Facebook member to watch. Also, thanks to Kit, these will also be aired on CAN TV, and they will let us know when those are available as well.
Yep.
But you can find all of the candidates. We will be endorsing a few of them. Again, Northside Democracy for America. Get on our you can get on a mailing list, email list, where we'll let you know and who those candidates are and how to get involved, so you can eventually endorse folks like Mueze.
Yes, and Joe, by the way, I just want to let you know that I did speak to the people at CAN TV at programming. Definitely both the 2-hour programs will be aired. So I know that you guys said you want a specific time in January. You want them to be aired. So please private message me, so that way these two events can be shared on the CAN TV network.
Will do.
Kathy asked to put the forum link in the chat. Ed, if you can do that. But Kathy, it's also in our YouTube show notes. If you click open our Google document, the forums are linked in the show notes, so you can automatically find them there too. Hopefully, Ed will have an opportunity to share those as well. But listen,
which forum are we talking about?
The Northside Democracy for America forum.
Okay.
Yeah,
there were
show notes. Yeah, there were 2, and both are linked in our show notes. So
sorry, I'm multitasking over here.
No, I know, and I, Kathy, we always put every link in our show notes to make it easier for people if we can't pop them up in the chat. So Ed's juggling a lot here to help me and us. So I didn't mean to overwhelm you, Ed. Joe and Kathy, thank you so much. I want to move on to interviewing one of your endorsers.
Joe and Becky.
I'm sorry, Becky. Joe and Becky.
Thank you.
That's okay. I'm happy to be confused with Kathy. That's awesome.
Thank you both for joining, and we hope to have you on again in the future. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for everything you shared tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Okay. So the new gentleman of the hour is Mr. Mueze Bawany. Mueze, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate the chance to speak to folks and be in this space. Thank you.
So I came across your candidacy here by one of your canvassers who actually was knocking on my door when I was preparing a show, and I could not go down and meet him. But I said, look, I'm all for learning about this new candidate. I live in the 50th. And, it's interesting to know that Silverstein has a challenger because she's been the incumbent here since I believe she unseated Bernie Stone many, many years ago.
And, to be fair, I haven't had any major issues with Silverstein, although I have looked more closely into her record. And that's some of the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight, because I think you've got some good ideas, especially in regard to some troubling things I found out about her service here in the 50th Ward. I also fielded a telephone poll last night for the 50th Ward. And they were asking me questions about Silverstein and you. And as they were asking me questions about you, I said, well, I can't answer this question who my choice is right now, because I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Bawany tomorrow night on my show, and I want to hear what he has to say so I can have a more informed opinion. So I'm very, very grateful you're able to join us tonight and share your platform and share what you bring to this race as far as improving things in the 50th Ward. To start out, can you share with our viewing audience, I know that we've got a lot of fans of yours in the chat already, your background and what experience, most importantly, you feel you bring to changing the guard here in the 50th Ward?
Yeah. So my name is Mueze Bawany. I'm a public school teacher on leave. While being a public school teacher, I was the chair of the Chicago Teachers Union Housing Committee. I've served as a district organizer, as a delegate. I've served as a strike coordinator, a kind of our district coordinator role where you support multiple picket lines. I've been leading picket lines like I did when I was a teacher at Clemente. Prior to that, I've organized in food justice spaces. I've organized in immigration and disability justice spaces. I think for me, or the reason why, the reason why people tend to care about this campaign, tend to care about us and what we're doing in this campaign is just because my heart has, ever since I've been open to the movement. And I've been doing this for 12 years in terms of solidarity and getting through the city and fighting alongside folks for progressive change. I think people just realize, it was easier for me back then to go and help out wherever I can, support, go to programs, do mutual aid. But during the pandemic, community members really saw this at a higher level, whether I was going back and forth between Humboldt Park to West Ridge. And I think the level of work and the level of care and compassion that I have as an educator, but also just the idea of people being isolated and feeling alone is something really emotional to me, because that's how my family felt a lot. And that's how I felt a lot as a kid. So, there are days where I could go home and be like, all right, dude, you've done your job. You did a valiant thing. You taught a class today. You were a school teacher. You supported young people. But whenever I would hear about this protest is going on here, or this family needs groceries, or this person is having trouble, or you get a beep, I would just go, because every single time I couldn't imagine, I couldn't stop imagining how my dad felt when he was alone, or how my mother felt when she was alone, in these spaces. Beyond organizing and being involved and being an educator, I also sit on the Warren Park Advisory Council currently. I've also done my diligence in terms of supporting LSCs, being really in the background in terms of making sure that educators and families know their rights. So that extends to work around the Welcoming City Ordinance and the fight to make sure our schools were sanctuary schools and our city remains a sanctuary city. So in those legislative spaces or those organizing spaces, I have some background as well.
So you live in the 50th, and your family has lived in the 50th.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, I don't think this, I constantly state that I'll just be blunt. A lot of people lean on identity politics. I don't think in this case, though, it's a bad thing, because you do really represent the culture of this community. I live up here. I live off of Western and Devon. And as we call it, the Pakistani Indian corridor, great cultural presence here in the ward, especially along this long stretch of business here. And I'm very grateful to see that a lot of progressive organizations, and that's perhaps where Alderperson Silverstein has kind of lost touch with some of the issues that you just addressed there. You are not only endorsed by Northside Democracy for America, you're also endorsed by the Girl, I Guess voting guide, and she vets a lot of progressive candidates across the city, and that's a good sign. What inspired you? What specifically did you see in Alderperson Silverstein's tenure here as Alderwoman that inspired you to say, we need to make a change here? We know, I looked into it, and I understand there was a scandal regarding transparency with the library sale in the ward. and she voted against the homeless referendum, not the recent one, but the last one. So, these are two major topics that I thought they're problematic. And I also want to be fair, though. I've never had a problem with her as alderperson because I have seen her engaged in the ward, coming out when we have storms, doing street cleanup and stuff. However, those two issues that I looked into and feel are troubling have kind of, changed some of my opinion about her. So I think it's important to know, all of us as a candidate, what do you really see that's most problematic as a resident in the ward that inspire you to say things have got to change and I'm the person to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, years and years, I caught a little bit about the NDFA portion, but I think, we've been living in a city where machine politics has dominated, right? And I think that for many of us, we've also kind of internalized the fact that unless it's an O'Connor or Burke, that, unless you're indicted, right, you're fine. It's like
you get away with things.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the jokes my dad would make about governor. As long as when JB was elected, my dad was like, as long as he doesn't go to jail, he's already better than everybody else, right?
It's a really low bar too.
It's extremely low bar. I think the reality is, I'm not a politician. I'm a school teacher. I love school. I love school. Schools are the reason why I exist and why my story is possible. In the same capacity, I'm somebody who's worked his entire life because I've struggled to get to the point of teaching. I started teaching 6 years ago. So at the same time, teaching also gave me healthcare, right? For example. So when people were asking me to run, I was like, man, you don't understand. I got healthcare and I realized hypertension runs in my family. I realized all these things about just not taking care of myself, right? And I just, it's hard. And more importantly, I love teaching. We always make this joke on the campaign that there's nothing that can scare me in this election, in city council. I'm a school teacher. I get roasted by CPS kids every day, right? They prepare you for this and beyond. I think the heart of what I feel is that during the pandemic, I just witnessed so much of the indignities that people have to live through. They're there. But I think just like with people being unhoused in our community, we do our best just not to see it, even though we know 65K, as the Bring Chicago Home Coalition says, need a place to stay, right? And I realized that people like Alderwoman Silverstein in charge are completely fine with people living in the politics of chance, right? You figure it out. Whether it was folks being evicted during an eviction moratorium, whether it was people trying to figure out how to get laptops, internet access for their children, especially in a working class, poor space like we are, right? With refugees, with different 40 plus languages. There's a special type, the way you've described, our neighborhood is so vibrant, but that type of vibrancy deserves to be honored and loved and cared and garnered and protected, right? What really gets to the heart of my feelings is these basic indignities from not having any documentation or the website translated, not doing any outreach directly to communities. And then it gets deeper, the vote against the mental health, the vote to support closing the mental health centers, right?
Yep.
And it gets deeper in terms of allowing a school like Clinton Elementary to have their budget cut when that's the school that supports your bilingual and special education students.
Did she support the closing of the mental health clinics? I don't remember. Is that a fact? I know that she
voted with Ram. Yep.
Oh, she voted with Ram. Okay. Yep. Good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are things that working people in this neighborhood need, and then you get deeper. People love our food, speaking as a Pakistani, right? But you know what else we need? We need affordable housing. Sapri has done this report, the South Asian Policy Research Institute, around how many people in our neighborhood are living below minimum wage or living below poverty wages, right? Essentially. Yeah. And then you go knock doors because that's what we do, right? And sorry if I keep jerking up a little bit, it's because my back is killing me from today.
But
you knock doors and you see 12 people in a building where it's one apartment, right? People are living doubled up. But growing up like I did, when we lived as 5 to a studio, using curtains to make compartments. My dad would say, just be blessed that we have a roof. And that's how many people in this neighborhood live, right? And we don't address their needs. And during the pandemic, it was even more true with how many people were just trying to reach out to the office. I got directed this way. I got directed this way. Folks needed help. And that was a moment for us to step up. And who stepped up? Community members did. Yeah. Everyday people did, right? And now that it's election time, all of a sudden, people, like Alderwoman Silverstein, want to come aboard and say, I've always been there for people. Those are not the stories, right? You could come out, cut a ribbon. You can come out and say, I'm here for this, I'm here for that. But then when people ask you honest and sincere questions about participatory budgeting, we don't have that in place. Community-based zoning, we don't have that in place. Or what are we going to do about these closed businesses? What are we going to do about our young people falling into more violent areas in this community, right? Or what are we going to do about the fact that people in this neighborhood are still struggling with housing and food stability? And there's just nothing there, right? And I do think very strongly that this is a moment for people in West Ridge to really say we deserve better, right? Especially in the most diverse community. Yeah. Like what this neighborhood taught me as a young person is like we all pulled through because of community. And what would it look like if the leadership in this community honored them? If we had the return of a High Ridge Y that was shut down, if we had interfaith community councils, if people got to know each other, if we invested deeper into our schools and didn't leave parts of this ward neglected for 20 plus years when it comes to menu money investment, right? It just seems like when you walk through this place, you're in 3 different neighborhoods and people get along because they understand and really, really understand and know the empathy of it all and understand what people are going through. And I feel like that's how I grew up with Nigerian aunties and uncles, how I grew up with people in the community who were from like refugees from Kosovo, or like my Somali best friends, or that we would hoop at Greenbrier with the Orthodox folks across the street from Clinton, right? We grew up because there's this intense empathy and desire to get along, and we need leadership that reflects and really, really, really brings every single community to the forefront and builds these long-lasting partnerships, while one that strongly believes that we can't leave folks to chance, and we need mental health clinics, we need affordable housing.
That's the mental health clinics is a huge, yeah. And a lot of people a lot of the candidates at the Mayoral Forum, I was very pleased to hear, have their eyes on that as being a very, very prominent issue. You know, also living in the 50th Ward here, I just kind of on a side note, I'm just reminded of a conversation I had with a friend of mine many, many years ago, because my grandmother used to live in this building I live in now. And it was predominantly, it was a Greek and Orthodox Jew neighborhood. And now it's a lot of Pakistani and Indian people moved into the neighborhood. And we've referred to this as, gratefully, as like Chicago's mini Gaza Strip. If the Jewish people and the Muslim people can get along here, we know it's possible worldwide. And that speaks to what you were just commenting about community, right? Everybody gets along, everybody helps each other from all factions because of that diversity. And it's really, really very, encouraging to see. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I wanted to go into, I have the page up regarding your issues. Let me bring that up here, and I can also kind of, maybe we can go through, and I'm not going to completely bogart the conversation, guys. I do want you guys to be involved with asking Mueze some questions also, but really quickly, let's go over some of the issues as stated on your website. We've got community safety, economic justice, immigrants justice, ward democracy, climate justice, and strong public services. Do you want to maybe speak briefly to each of these, one by one, just maybe give a little cliff note regarding each topic that we can then open up for, more conversation with Kit and Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our big four.
What's lacking in community safety here, do you see? Maybe that we can open that up to talk about your platform.
Yeah, I think community safety is holistic, right? At the heart of this, I think, time tested in every society, in every part of the world, and especially looking during the pandemic, right? When we saw the extension of the child tax credit and how that reduced poverty in half, right? Like any crime reduction has to come with poverty reduction. And that at the heart of what I believe is like, you can't see public safety without holistically seeing what's going on in our neighborhoods and our society.
Proactive solutions.
Right. And one of my students said this very gracefully. And you have to understand, as a public school teacher, you learn very early the realities on the ground, right? Like in the 3rd week of school, a student said, Mr. Bawany, you keep giving me homework, bro, but I don't have a home, right? And it became this thing that motivated a lot of my work in the housing committee. How are we going to be given homework when young people don't have homes? But like at a deeper level, a student said this during summer school, and I love teaching summer school because I really spend time with folks who, it's a lot of young people who don't have a positive perception of school, and they're in summer school and it's difficult. And I remember this young person said to me, like, Bawany, there's a number to call when you want somebody dragged away, but there isn't a number to call when you're starving. Right?
Right. Oh
and
my God, that's such a strong point.
True.
refuse in every single way for anybody to tell us that one of the richest cities in the world can't come up with solutions to hunger, to housing.
We know they can. They've got the money for it. We know Chicago.
Exactly.
Amen. So, when we look at public safety, I think one deeply, what are we doing for our young people? We have parks in this neighborhood where the hoops have been taken down. We have a school called Mosaic, which used to be called Boone, where, on any given day during a warm day, like you have 9 teams waiting to play basketball. Like that's an overburdened basketball court. And this is where some of the arguments come up when you talk to community members and educators from the area. Or you go to Warren Park and you don't sometimes see programs for young people from 14 to 17. This is a neighborhood where 1 out of 5 people are between the ages of 5 to 19. What are we doing for them? Right? Like we've closed the High Ridge Y. We had an opportunity, and with all due love and respect to Fora, I'm glad Fora has the old library, but what could that have been to all the young people in this neighborhood as a space? And Fora is going to do their best, but what could it have been as a space for everyone, right?
I was shocked to discover a library needed to shut down in the neighborhood. We need more. Yeah. We need to keep. Why did I don't know the particulars of why it closed down, and Fora took over. Now, also, to be fair, although Alderwoman Silverstein should have been very, very forward in that I guess she had a business association affiliation with the entity that wanted to buy that undervalued library. It was with the intention of, I guess, providing disability support, but she should have been transparent about the fact she was on that board. That's where it gets hinky. It's like you can't hide, it's a good thing, and then forget to mention that you might potentially benefit as a public as a public servant.
Yeah, I mean, with anything, the more transparency, the better, right? Yep. You want to always be open, especially when you're in a position of this power. So I just, from the onset, not being open is just a mistake. No alderman should be avoiding transparency.
Absolutely.
So seeing that public safety is holistic and seeing about, what are the programs we're offering in school? How are we supporting young people, even though we don't have high schools in this area or under the 50th ward? But thinking deeply as a city about, how many years do we stay in touch with our young people after they graduate to see how life is going? Do you have a job? Are you in college? Do you need help getting into a trade? Like, these things are crucial to public safety, along with, public safety being about how we treat bikers in this neighborhood, right? Like, we have dedicated bike lanes that are protected. Public safety is lighting. Public safety is your neighbors getting to know each other and feeling the aldermanic office consistently being in touch. Public safety is having mental health clinics open again. Public safety is having an actual program that supports people who suffer from domestic violence, right? When the 911 OEMC line tells you that the majority of calls are coming in are about domestic violence, about mental health breakdowns, about people having arguments with neighbors, or people just mistaking a firecracker for some sort of other. How do we not have a model that responds to this? How do we not have clinicians and social workers that allow this space to happen? I know the alderwoman stance is it's easy to regurgitate more police.
Yeah.
But some of these issues and the hurt people are going through, you can't police away.
Completely.
If you want to be pragmatic about it, we've had the lowest numbers of people graduating the academy. We have all these openings. Why would you not support something like treatment, not trauma? Why would you not support ordinances that allow different methods to respond to issues in our neighborhoods so the police can worry about things that neighbors have uplifted in our door knocking, right? Catalytic converters, the shootings that have been happening, right? Even that's being pragmatic rather than saying police, because public safety as a whole, public safety is when our young people don't know where to go. When people in this community who have left genocide, some of the most horrendous situations, don't have access to free public quality mental health care, right? Like, those things are deeply important to me. And that's the crux of our public safety. It's this belief of, one, we need policies like Bring Chicago Home. You can't, people are not living in tents in parks because they want to, and it's glorious. It's because they don't have any other options, right? And that's a failure of society. Same as my student called out the fact that there are hungry children, unhoused children in our society. So these policy failures have done an extensive amount of harm to our public safety. But the answer we've created in this culture of Chicago politics is we're going to police these problems away. And, I ask neighbors at doors, right? Do you want to see the unhoused in jail? And when they're faced with these questions, they're like, no, that's just inhumane, right? And they get it. They really get it. And then you realize in our discussion, something's got to give when it comes to compassion and how we view people.
Well, it does sound like a big issue. Look, a big point that you're shedding light on for me, as Kathy shares. Silverstein, I guess, has been pretty much a mayoral rubber stamp, go along to get along, as not addressing a lot of these issues that you're very passionate about. That I'm very excited to hear you share. Let's move on to the next topic that's on your website, and this is talk a little bit about your economic justice platform.
Yeah. With economic justice, it's kind of continuing to create pipelines for people to be able to find jobs. Like, how are we working with schools? How are we working into our, for example, like we feed into Mather and Sullivan and Sen. And so, of course, we also feed into our selective enrollments, right? How are we supporting young people with the advancement of career and technical education programs, CTE, which usually leads to the trades, right? How are we supporting people in this neighborhood with having access to like quality jobs that are opening up with, that are connected to unions for all or good airport jobs. Like we have a large contingency of people who live in Westridge who work at O'Hare, right? How are we making sure our office is supportive of their needs as workers, but also like continuing to create venues for them to get continuing education? And then the Association of Economic Justice is also our effort to consider programs like Bring Chicago Home, right? That helps like folks with housing, building affordable housing in this neighborhood as well. Because as CHA has said, this neighborhood, the cost of rent in this neighborhood is far outpassing the salaries that people are afforded. Those are some of the tiers of our economic justice, but we've even dove in like really heavily into programs such as making CTA free for students and elders, right? Also helps us.
Yep.
Also helps us economically, right? Fighting for that fight helps us economically, but also environmentally, right? To get more cars off of the road and allow people mobility. Economic justice also extends tangentially to our belief in like plowing the sidewalks, right? There's a lot of people in these neighborhoods who are trying to get to work who don't have transportation that is an individual car.
And it creates jobs to plow the sidewalk.
It creates a ton of jobs too. So, these are parts of our economic justice plan, but also, people have opened up, right? One of the heartbreaking things about sometimes being in Westridge is when you go to a restaurant and waiters tell you not to tip, right? Like not to tip on card.
That happens here? Wow.
Yeah, it's been one of those things that we did a meet and greet and we did some, discussions with people who work as wage workers and restaurant workers. And it was something that was coming up immensely. So, there was a sister here who told me, I really hope your office becomes one where you like help us and open up for our needs when it comes to slum landlords and also wage garnishing, right? Like these things, protecting people in these spaces too is something deeply crucial and important to us.
Very fair. Ward democracy is another point on your website here. Talk about, I think this also speaks to what you were talking about, transparency and having forums to listen to residents in the community and really keep an open door bridge with you and what leadership in the ward would provide.
Yeah, no, that's what's up. I mean, I love ward democracy because I'll tell you, it would be heartbreaking to me if we win and then 4 years later we lose to the machine. And the way you stop the machine is you do ward democracy, right? I think, I always talk about Medicare for all, right? One of the big, like in the United Kingdom, there was that effort to strip away healthcare, but the fact that people had it made them fight. Fight really hard.
Yeah.
And the reason why the right in this country will not concede and some of the center about Medicare for all is because once we get our hands on it, we're going to fight like hell.
That's right. We're never going to let it go.
Never going to let it go.
Never let it go. And people don't realize, because we've been brainwashed ways all our lives in this system, to not understand that healthcare is not a privilege. It is a right, as other countries have demonstrated. But it's we're all for making money and supporting ourselves, but this capitalist system is absolutely rancid and corrupt. It only serves those who have control over it. And, in this case, it's the insurance and the pharmaceutical companies, right? And people don't understand that, we're all one, what's the expression? We're one tragedy away from medical bankruptcy. And no one should be in that position anyway, I didn't mean to, but back to your point. Go ahead.
No, that's honestly, I love it. Like, listen, I think being in spaces and being aligned with how we believe and how we see human beings, you ain't got to apologize. You give me a lot of love too and heart there. So I think with ward democracy, I see it very similarly, right? What happens when you give democracy back to folks? What happens when people get to decide what we do with our menu money? What happens when we have zoning advisory councils to slow down, any encroachment of gentrification or slow down like the retailification versus people putting their livelihoods into small businesses, right? Making sure we support them. What happens when the ward office becomes home for a youth council? When our young people make decisions on things, right? What happens when you build interfaith community efforts? The whole purpose of ward democracy is to really, for me, one is to obviously expand transparency, accountability, and accessibility. But two, it is also to give people what everything my dad believes about this country, right? Give people the power back. And that's also a way, once people see that, dang, we came together and build a community garden, we're not going to give that power back. Or that we created programs for our young people, we're not giving that power back. Or when neighbors are talking to neighbors about issues important to them, we're not giving that power back. So that's what I believe about ward democracy.
That we actually live up to the ideals we were told this country represents, that we, as critical thinkers growing up, recognize, we've basically been fed lies because it's not actually in action with those who are at the top controlling things, pitting us against each other. Let's go into, I think you've kind of covered some of the points with strong public services.
Yeah. There's always an overlap, but making sure we see ward services as something closely tied to dignity. People work hard, right? And you deserve, if you're a pothole is not a small thing.
Oh,
right? Like
especially the big ones.
Yep.
Right? And it's not. And people sometimes say to me like, hey man, why you go really hard about this stuff? But I just want my pothole fixed. I'm like, yeah, but you deserve dignity. You work hard as heck, right? I was around working people my entire life. And like when my dad would come home and he'd be like, man, we still haven't had a garbage can replaced, right? That would stress him out, right? Because it's accumulation of who you are. So one, people, ward services are tied to dignity. People need to be getting the services that they deserve. They need to have a responsive office. They can't have an office that says, call this, call that, call this. Two, stronger ward services make for a stronger community. So plowing the sidewalks, 100%. Free CTA for our young people, 100%. Ensuring that that we can use and continue to fight for spaces like the Department of Environment and bring that to an accessible level to our communities. That's a given. That's what we have to do. So when I think about public services, I think deeply about the fact, one, we need to be responsive to every single part of the community. Two, we need to do a lot of accessibility justice too. Like folks, there's a big part of our community that doesn't have English literacy. How are we reaching out to them? How are we making sure they're aware of their rights, and how are they aware of like their rights of being a good neighbor, right? Like I'm always thinking about, I know for a fact once it starts snowing, I'm going to get at least 18 phone calls in a week about, hey, can you help us shovel the alleys, right? Like these neglected spaces. We got to do work on that end. Talk to some businesses as well. Like if you go to the side of the ward where Stone Elementary is, a lot of people open up about, man, garbage keeps coming through the business corridor, right? How do we talk to the businesses and say, well, can we support you to make sure this doesn't happen? Or how do we even come up with community agreements or community-based agreements to make sure we're being good neighbors? And how does the office turn that into a public services like effort to make that, something needed? Like if you need a bigger garbage can, right? We got to work on that together. So I think all of it is tied. I'm a big believer in that these public services speak to folks' dignity, and they should be extended, especially when we think about folks with disabilities, our elders, and our young folks too.
Two more topics on your platform. Immigrants, justices, next to last. Talk a little bit about that with us.
Yeah,
I got a follow-up question too.
Oh, okay. Let Kit go first. I don't want him to lose his thought. Go ahead, Kit.
Well, no. Obviously, there's an importance about immigrant justice. So here's the thing. Now, again, it's to be determined what the current situation is happening there. But in 2018, we covered, Hardlands Media in particular, the fact that the Gary Chicago International Airport was a hub and location in which non-violent migrants were being deported out of. Now, again, the specific around this time era, obviously Trump was president, and Rahm Emanuel greatly prided that Chicago was a sanctuary city. Now,
Lightfoot has too, even though she's, put all these migrants from Texas into warming shelters and parks instead of all the vacant buildings across the city.
Yeah, and also areas outside of Chicago too.
Yeah.
So the thing is, and when we covered this in 2018, the buses, thanks by the activists and organizers, the buses were that were going to load the amount of migrants on the planes, who, mind you, would be climbing up the stairs chained like animals. those buses were rerouted away. However, they, instead of going through Gary Chicago International Airport, they went through O'Hare Airport. So that means these buses went through Chicago as a sanctuary city at the time to O'Hare. So what I want to say is, in light of the situation that's going on with migrants, especially those that have been sent to people like areas like Martha's Vineyard and here in Chicago as well, as a potential alderman, what are you prepared to do to really make sure that many of these migrants will be taken care of, and at the same time too, they won't be deported away in a way that we've seen other previous mayors dismiss them, like Rahm Emanuel and Lightfoot?
Yeah, no, I mean, pathway to citizenship. I think, this is one of those moments. I mean, one, I want to say I'm disgusted that, the governor of Texas and any of the folks on the right who use human beings as political football. In a way, it was really this watershed moment during this time because, CTU responded because a lot of the folks that are coming are also young people, right, in our communities that are going to need our schools. And we fought hard in the 2019 strike to make our schools welcoming schools, right, and schools that were safe schools too for our newcomers. I think, but this moment also really called out people who can say on words like, yes, we support, and, human beings should not go through these indignities like they've gone through in these red states. We had a chance, right, to really show the world what we could do in this case. And I still think there's an opportunity there. We had neighbors come in from Venezuela who were put in the old library, right? And then one of our organizers happened to see that, during a smoke break, just walked by and asked, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Right. And we were able to hear from them what they needed because winter is a climate they're not used to. We organized a drive to get jackets, specific shoe sizes, specific needs when it comes to warming. And then also now, since we've been connected, every Sunday we make breakfast and arepas for these newcomers, right? But they're no longer in West Ridge. They're now in University Village at a hostel. But this moment and these discussions we've had, one, we should not be transitionary space for people and following these inhumane things of just shipping people back.
Well, let's also speak to specifically in the ward, because topically focused on the ward. Apparently there've been ICE raids here, and I'm reading in your Immigrants Justice. I wasn't aware that there were a lot of ICE raids in Westridge. So if we focus locally on the 50th ward regarding your immigration justice platform.
Yeah, I mean, we had some reports. So, I tracked really a lot of the work of some neighbors in Albany Park. They had something called the Albany Park Defense Network, where people were being alerted as to when ICE was present in the neighborhood.
Wow.
This is going on in Westridge as well. I was hearing from, friends and relatives in the area, and you would try to get to certain areas to see what we could figure out, how we could support. But if you're a city that says you're a sanctuary city, if your neighborhood like ours, which has been the Ellis Island of Chicago, right? Communities have come here from all over. We have members now from Rohingya, Syrian, Afghan spaces as well as part of the newer communities that have come in through West Ridge. You cannot have ICE going through this neighborhood. So as an alderman, one, at a legislative level, I will make sure that any of our authority systems are not ever working with ICE. Two, I will make sure the mayor and all the community groups that are involved and stakeholders will never allow ICE here. But three, if we got to organize like we did, or like we saw in Albany Park, we'll make sure there's a community-based network of people informing each other. And that if we're using religious spaces, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, that working with faith leaders to make sure people have sanctuary and are protected, right? And especially our schools as well. That's the level I'm willing to fight for our newcomers in this. And then we need to work at the federal level to make sure that there are programs that, one, support people in terms of housing, but two, also put people on the pathway of citizenship. I think a lot about what we saw in Europe, right? And I remember one of the poets saying, no one puts their child in turbulent waters if the land isn't safe. No one makes the journey up here if they haven't really completely lost the reality that there's nothing for them in their home, right? And I refuse to let the humanity taken from these situations, because the right wing is so good at making us think that this is going to become something that we're gonna regret because
against each other.
Violent, right? It's disgusting. And you meet folks, and when you meet folks, like when we drop off food or when we dropped off supplies, you understand these are people who've really gone through the worst situation, and all they want is everything our parents and we want for ourselves: safety and somewhere to call home. And that's how we need to fight as an office.
Ed, did you want to share? I sound like one of you were going to share something.
I don't have anything to add because he says all the things that we talk about basically every week on Chicago Corner in one way or another. It's, you know, we talk. I mean, we were talking. I mean, welcome to the 17 new migrants that I just read about in the news. So I guess, you know, hope you're being safe. Hope someone is looking out for you. And I just, you know, I see these things. It's like he's talking about community and he's talking about all these other things, and I'm like, yeah, these are this is stuff we have in the Chicago Corner Manifesto. This is stuff that we've accumulated, that I've accumulated and compiled into that document because of the time I've spent watching and being on Chicago Corner.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing to know that we have candidates who are like-minded in a lot of ways.
Let's talk about the last platform on your website, Mueze, climate justice as it relates to the 50th Ward. You want to share a little bit about your vision with that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, at the heart of this, I think about this a lot because, you know, you heard of, I hope people have heard of the flooding that happened in Pakistan, the catastrophic level.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's my homeland. Right?
We saw it here in Chicago when the last big rainstorm, remember? I mean, it literally looked like what we see in the news in other countries across the world, which speaks to like what's going on with our infrastructure here. But it also does speak to, you know, the whole issue of global warming and how we don't have an eye on it. I mean, I do think, you know, for this topic, we want to kind of hyper-focus locally in the 50th Ward. What we know you can do as an alderman, as well as, you know, share what your vision is that can also help, you know, the rest of the city. But, you know, I know that you're going to be focused on what's happening here in the 50th.
Yeah, absolutely. And I speak this as a prefacing of just, you know, people would ask, like, the 50th Ward, environmental justice, because, you know, like my brother Oscar Sanchez was running on the southeast side in the 10th Ward, right? Like, that's been an issue that's been more front and center around environmental justice, right? And like
environmental racism
and the creation of these sacrifice zones. And people will ask, like, you know, what about the climate justice in your end? And I'm like, this is still important to me. And I preface Pakistan in this because, you know, 1/3 of the nation was underwater and still is recovering. And the fact that, you know, where my father is from in Pakistan in about 20 years will no longer be inhabitable because of the fact that it's going to be increasingly hot, right? And people have already talked at a political level back home of shifting an entire city. I think it is incumbent on us, one, as a city to be prepared, especially a city that has been a refuge for so many people, to be prepared for climate refugees as time goes on, and especially considering how much we should build a society that our young people will inherit and, you know, have something to inherit. But two, at an environmental justice level, I'm a firm believer in the Department of Environment and a robust Department of Environment that needs to be involved in the city's financing and budgeting that, you know, one, does an immense amount of work talking and educating people on climate justice, but also taking real issues like, you know, people talk to us about their trees or when they have sick trees. What can that be in terms of a way of making things accessible? But two, you know, using a Department of Environmental Justice to, one, protect our lake, make sure our buses become electric, really drive the amount of pollution that this city produces, right? In thinking of simple and creative solutions that's encouraging different modes of transportation, working with CTA to make sure that public transportation is, one, robust, incredibly accessible, and it is one that has a fleet of electric vehicles in the future, right? I think some of these are the crux of our works. I think the bigger ad as well, that where we become really, really thinking ahead and thinking about, one, a city that cares about the world, but two, also, how does Chicago prepare for, you know, the exodus of folks from different countries that are suffering because of the United States and other nations' footprint?
Mueze, I have to tell you, I hope that other progressive candidates across the city find this and follow the template that you provide for a really comprehensive and solution-based progressive platform, because I wish I could get on the phone with the lady who called me with the polling last night, because now that I know what you stand for, I'm sold. and I'm really, you know, we've spoken to a few other candidates, and none, I can fairly say, I feel have demonstrated the passion and the really comprehensive problem solving that you have set forth here in this interview. And I want to ask Kit and Ed also in follow-ups, because I think you've been so forthcoming in your vision for the ward, which I think is a vision that, could be shared across all wards. Anything else that you want to add before I pass it to Kit and Ed with maybe some of their follow-ups?
Yeah. At the heart of this is that, I want people to know immensely about, to know me, you got to know my story. And, we're a working class family. My father was a taxi driver. My mom was a restaurant worker. We were evicted 3 times as I was young. The first time being so, you don't understand these things, right? I thought my mom put the furniture out there because she was visual. She was always so visual. And I'm like, maybe she's rearranging, right? Or maybe we're partying in the front lawn. And then you see, like, when your father shows up, just consoling your mother, because it just feels like that they've failed you, right? I am someone, and I say this and I mean this immensely, I'm someone that came from people who were perceived as no one. And that makes me fight hard as hell for everyone. And that's what this campaign's ethos is about.
I love your passion, brother. Kit.
All right. So obviously there is a homelessness crisis here in this city. Every time I'm driving out there, from going to the studio to doing work here and so much more abroad and helping out clients, I'm seeing it get worse and worse. Now, there is a potential chance for you to become a brand new alderman that the city desperately needs. What are you prepared to do to really hold not only the city council, but this mayoral but potentially new mayoral administration? There is, God forbid, it's the current one that got reelected, accountable to make sure that the people of Chicago have a bright and better future ahead of them. Because from what I'm seeing right now, people who have been doing the right thing for a very long time are being screwed over by a city that doesn't care if they live the next day.
Yeah. We got to fight. One, at a basic level, I support Bring Chicago Home. I've really, I fought, we worked hard to try to get affordable housing into our union platform, and it'll come back up in 2024, right? When the educators fight for a new contract, and going as far, because it's necessary, to freeze evictions on any family that has a kid going to school from K to 12, right? And then supporting them. That's the level of work we need to fight for. And it's going to be a fight. And I want to tell fellow progressives and our family out there, listen, look how many aldermanic openings are there, right? We are fighting a legacy from 1919 from the race riots of a city that hasn't loved its people back, that has chosen consistently to oppress and continue to put segregation and racism at the heart of it, rather than fighting for a change. So we got to be fighting. And Bring Chicago Home is this brilliant plan of using the real estate transfer tax, right? But even if we we don't get what we want, we have to realize there's so many aldermanic openings because people can read. They can read the tea leaves. They can see the future. And they know people in Chicago, compassionate, good people, are fighting. And we cannot accept in any which way that someone should be unhoused, because housing is a human right. And we got to put people in homes. We got to fight like they did in Avondale, where now an encampment that once used to exist, each person is in a home, right? And that there are people struggling every single day in the city to call out folks who think homelessness is the problem of people. There's this obsession with individual accountability for systemic issues, and we got to keep fighting back. It's going to take a while, maybe. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully we get a city council of progressives and a progressive mayor, but that doesn't stop our responsibility for fighting for a better Chicago. And believe it or not, as we see it, people are with you. They just need you to bring that love to the doors, bring that love to your community, and we can get it.
Is there an opportunity in the 50th for you to actually have a forum with Alderwoman Silverstein to really be able to present to the community why your vision is obviously so much more supportive to the residents in the 50th ward?
There's some coming up. I know I'm so inundated with dates in my head right now that I don't know exactly when.
Well, I'm glad that there will be one, because I think that, we covered the mayoral forum the other night, and where people could talk to each other. And I think for every ward, so long as there's an opportunity for the citizens in each ward to go to a public, gathering place where they, whatever kind of venue, to listen to any candidates running in that ward is extremely important. Because obviously, Mueze, you're going to you're gonna leaps and bounds over Silverstein. All respect to what she has done in the ward up till now. I do think we're ready for a change, and I am very impressed with your vision with that.
I appreciate it. I know that West Ridge Community Organization is working on one. I think we had some outreach with AARP, so we're going to land a date with them. And I think Communities United. So there will be 3 that I know of, but I'm ready. I believe in us. I believe in people, and I know when we just like the Doors. When you bring it to people, we deep canvas. We don't just canvas, we deep canvas.
I'm so glad your canvasser knocked on my door because I didn't know who you were, and I'm glad I do now. Ed and Kit, before I ask my final 3 little minor questions, anything else from the 2 of you?
Edward,
I've got it's actually it's a very controversial and polarizing question that we
are you going to
ask very often?
Are you going to jump?
That we ask very often about candidates who come on this show, and of course our regulars already know we were going to ask it. So Kathy Powers,
you bogarted it, man.
What is your position on dibs?
So, one, I think if we're not, helping people or finding ways to dig cars out, how are you gonna be mad at people who are putting in the work? And it's a personal thing because my dad his neighbor almost had a heart attack trying to dig out. And so I always think of Uncle Ibrahim, who that happened to. God rest his soul, he did pass away. But not because of that, but that was a moment where I was like, yo, man, Uncle Ibrahim almost had a heart attack digging this out. He deserves to get dibs, right? But one, what are we doing to help people out? And I have a neighbor that every time it snows that needs my help because she has a disability, right? And she drives. And so, I can't get mad at folks. And you know what? My mom always says, it's never a bad thing if you're able and you have the ability to walk a little bit, right? If you got to park far away, just walk.
So Mueze, I just have to toss in my 2 cents here because I know that I don't always agree with my colleagues here. I think the whole concept of, not that this is my interview, but the whole concept of dibs, it's if you're going to if everybody digs out their cars, that means everybody's going to come back to a street with open spots. The idea of this is mine, no, it's a public street. And great, you had to dig your car out, but in the time that you're gone all day long, if there's a disabled person or a senior citizen who needs a spot while you're gone, you have no fucking right, forgive my language, to put a cone there or a lawn chair or statues from a nativity scene after Christmas. I saw one dibs, baby Jesus in his manger whisked their dibs. Hilarious. It's about community and outreach.
Actually,
Lori Lightfoot stand-up would be funny too. But no, I think that
you would want to park there with Lightfoot staring at you, though.
Yeah. I think your response is even handed to really covering both sides of it. And I think that too many people in, the efforts they make to dig out their spot are, a little bit selfish and not realizing there are other people in the neighborhood that might be able to use that spot while they're gone all day long that don't have the ability to dig it out. And again, it's a public street. Everybody digs out their spot. All the spots are open when they get back.
Yeah. I mean, and at a deeper level, these are things that I care about in the sense of how are we analyzing where our people are, where our elders are, where are people with disabilities, just like I feel about, what we're doing with speed bumps, right? We have to really do an acknowledgement of the density of where our young folks are, right? How do you not spend time as an alderman to understand where your young folks are, where your elders are, and what are we doing in terms of policy to take care of them, right? I agree. We all should dig it out, right? But what is our responsibility in this to also make sure? I mean, people need jobs, right? If we're doing the whole plow the sidewalk thing, how are we not also creating jobs by helping people? As soon as you see an opening, be hey, if you move your car, we're going to be digging it out. We're going to be doing this work in the city. And sometimes that's the most beautiful mutual aid, how much it means to people in your community when you help them dig out, but you also save a parking spot because the person in your building, there's one person who has a disability or is over the age, where they need some help. They need some support. That's what I always try to rally with my building mates.
When I pull out the snow blower after heavy snowfall, I don't just do my front. I go all the way to the alley so that people coming from Devon can get into the neighborhood. I wish I could do the whole block. I'm disabled myself on a prosthetic limb. So, I do it, but it's I'm realizing up to my house, I know that there's a path from the stores there where people shop. And, I know that there are some seniors in the neighborhood and possibly I know there are the disabled people because I see disabled marked spots on my street. So have more of a mind and an ear to the ground of how you can help everyone else, not just yourself.
Hey, that's what's up.
And I'm going to go to the next question. And I'll leave the sports related one to Kit, but I'm going to add, and you know what, Ed, you should have led with this because dibs was my big thing, but what's your favorite kind of Chicago pizza?
Oh man, I love veggie. So I'm vegetarian. And you know, when I can, I try to be vegan. So pizza's been kind of cut down for me, but I love like spinach. I just love veggies on a pizza immensely. I also, people can be mad, but I also love deep dish because it also has some deep connotations to like, you know, growing up poor, right? If your dad could bring a deep dish, it was like a family thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And you know, and also just seeing the smile on his face, right? Like I love my mom and dad, man. I do. And seeing the smile on my face on my dad, like this is a man who used to find joy in making sure the fridge was filled when my friends used to come over from Clinton, you know? Like, so I whenever I eat deep dish, I think about his smile and like how he, you know, for an immigrant father, right? Like how much it meant for him to be like, dang, you know, I'm like, we made it, right? Like we don't have much, but we're doing
pizza.
It.
There you, and deep dish pizza warms the heart of anyone.
It warms the heart. That's what's
there
up.
you go. There you
Deep
go.
dish?
Deep dish.
Never heard of it.
Deep dish pizza.
It's Ed's chance to share his website with the delicious
pizza. In case you didn't
recipes.
know, I have a website where I teach people how to make Chicago style pizza at home.
So then,
when I figure out how easy it is to make deep dish, and it really is. And if you, I mean, yeah, support your local businesses, get them from the places that are around the block or nearby. But you know, it's a very economical option to make it at home, and it's easy to do.
Okay, now you're walking into the final round here, Mueze.
Yeah, walking on the final round. So this is the big one. So
this is the real fire.
Yeah, the real landmine. And I do want to apologize, you know, because Jerry and Edward they smile at it because, you know, hey, this is the landmine question asked.
This is the pressing question that faces all Chicagoans.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, as an aldermanic candidate, you're going to have to answer this, and everyone. I will have to share it with them, and I don't apologize at all for wording this question out to you, and I hope that you will address this question as serious as possible. Chicago is a city that is rooted deep in history, and there are many things that both unite us and divide us. But the one fundamental question I must ask you is this: Chicago White Sox or Chicago Cubs?
Oh, okay. So y'all will not like me. My brother Fesso, hardcore White Sox fan. I love him immensely. I grew up a Cubs fan, but right now I'm neither because, as you know, the Ricketts have a deep.
That's a big.
The Ricketts have a deep Islamophobic issue. So I was heartbroken, but you know what? Like, you're not gonna like this answer. I grew up a Cubs fan, but I used to like. My dad used to get so mad. I used to pretend to be Frank Thomas in the house and try to hit dingers all the time and break something.
Okay.
So Big Hurt was my favorite player. I love the Cubs. Right now, Tony La Russa's hiring made me not want to cheer for the White Sox because I was like, dang, they got all these studs, right?
All right, fair enough.
And the Cubs I can't come back to because of the Ricketts.
Okay,
solid opinion.
So what I'm hearing is this: Cubs is a no-go, White Sox possible maybe.
I think that window closed for me because Rodon and they didn't do anything.
I love your honesty and transparency.
Okay.
You don't have
fair enough. Yeah,
those are fair, honest answers. Now, here's another great.
I love.
He's not telling us what we want, what any of us might want to hear, and I have no interest in sports. So it doesn't matter to me anyway.
All right.
But I know Kit's South Side and Ed is North Side.
But I'll say one thing.
I'm a South Sider through and through.
That's what's up. I'll say one thing though about like my sports opinion that. Like as I'm getting older, because I also grew up in a South Asian house where like, you know, sports was everything. And like my brother would like punch a TV and then my mom would chase him around the house. like you punch the TV. I still do love sports, but like, you know, one person in Chicago that has my heart and one team that will forever have my heart, no matter how much they hurt me. And I love the Chicago Sky too, but like, I'm a Bears fan through and through, and I love Justin Fields. I absolutely love Justin Fields. So if anybody needed an opinion on a sports hot take, that's me. I love the Bears. And Justin.
All right.
Wow.
All right. We're gonna hit the third rail on this then. How do you feel about them most likely moving to Arlington Heights? if they do, would you prefer they remain the Chicago Bears, or should they be required to change their name to the Arlington Heights Bears?
Yeah, they have to change the name. They have to change the name. They can't be our. Yeah,
they can't keep our name.
They can't keep our name. They can't keep our name.
I want to say this. I am against. So when we're here fighting for everybody to have a home, and Lori's like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you $2 billion to stay in Soldier Field."
Oh, well, you got $2
like,
billion for the Bears, but you don't got $2 billion for everybody sleeping in tents or under bridges.
Right.
Bitch.
I was like, get out, man. Send them to Arlington Heights. The name doesn't matter. Now that I know we have $2 billion, let's put everybody in a home.
All right. Very good.
They can go to
Very
Arlington.
good.
Great question.
They can go change the name. Go do your thing. What's up?
And then the follow-up to that is, okay, once Soldier Field is vacated, what would you recommend as a use for that place?
Oh man, community space for everybody. Get in there.
All right.
Do what you need to. Use it for concerts.
We could give it to the soccer teams that are being given CHA land. We can give it to the soccer teams that are being given CHA land. That's not going to
Get that land back, man, from the CHA folks. I mean, get all of our land back. Let that be the community venue for concerts. I love high school football immensely. I got to coach high school football for a bit. Let the high school kids play there, right? It's a huge honor. Let young people have more beautiful experiences. Do more programs for young people out there, but let it be a community space. I think the fact that people can walk downtown and they go to all these different venues, I would love to just stop at Soldier Field, right? And sit in the stands, with my family, hang out amongst people in the community. Maybe there's evening theater going on. Let's make it a communal space. Let it be one that helps us bring a city together.
So not a NASCAR track then?
No, absolutely not. We gotta save the environment.
We can go another hour on NASCAR, but we won't.
Absolutely
God,
not.
I am dreading that day when that NASCAR race happens, because honestly, I really hope nothing bad happens, but I could see some kind of disaster going down.
Kid, that's what it's all about. People go to these races to watch collisions, and that's what
I know. But here's the thing: there are arenas, Jerry, that are designed for that. This is the city of Chicago where it's not designed for it. And Lakeshore Drive, especially, we all know that corner. The Chicago people know what I'm talking about. That area by Lakeshore Drive where, hey, slow down, 30 miles an hour. Yes. That area is the recipe for a freaking disaster, Jerry.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir. We know our streets in the city are not designed for this, but we also know that Lightfoot is distracting people with NASCAR, with the casinos, with trying to keep the Bears here. We know Chicago's not broke. We know everybody needs help. We know she's not opening up the TIF funds to distribute equitably across all neighborhoods for proactive, preventative solutions and restorative justice. This is why she's got to go. And, okay, Mueze, we're going to display some of our irreverence tonight. Please forgive me, because whenever we talk about Mayor Lightfoot and why she has to go.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
And that's not misogynistic, because I use that when I talk about corrupt male politicians. So anyway, look, we've kept you long enough, although I'm very, very grateful you spent so much time with us being comprehensive about your solutions and your platform. And as I said, we come into these conversations and interviews wanting to be objective and ask, fair, maybe tough questions. And I think that you've performed. No, not performed. It was not performative. You've responded magnificently. So everybody, please make sure to visit Mueze's website. It is Mueze 450, as you can see down there. We hope to have you on again in the future. In the meantime, I'm definitely going to subclip this interview so it stands along on its own on our YouTube channel, and I'll send you the link so that you can also share it on your social media. It's been a real pleasure. I'm glad I had the opportunity to discover you and your candidacy in my ward.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you all for the space, and hopefully we can talk again, and appreciate you all the time.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Good night.
Yep.
Well,
Jerry, I don't know if we talked about this though on previous Chicago Corners, but did we bring up the fact what happened to the walking man?
I did. Actually, I mentioned it. Yeah, we can mention it again. Yeah. But while we had a break at Tuesday's coverage and you were corralling the next candidate to talk to, I did share the sad news that Joseph Kremlis has passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those who
they
don't know,
upgraded the charges on that too.
Yeah, so rest in peace, Walking Man, and yeah, so I don't know if we had a chance to bring that up because what happened to him was unjust. But thank you, Jerry. I did not know that you did that.
Yeah, when I was filling time, I was like, and I had read that story earlier that day, and I was thinking, Kira's not doing a show. We're covering the Mayoral forum, but it was definitely an important follow up to do.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So, moving into our next story. So, we talk about censorship, and we're kind of coming to the tail end of the show, everybody, but bear with me. We are always talking about censorship, as we did at the early part of the show, on how I made some comments on Lightfoot's Facebook live stream, and her minions or flunkies or maybe people at Facebook decided that, oh, no, we're going to mark it as spam so people can't see you actually calling out for not showing up at the Mayoral forum the night before. I regularly share our show on Reddit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I share it, the Chicago Bat, that's my handle over at Reddit, the moderators at Reddit say, sorry, this post has been removed by the moderators of Reddit Chicago. Moderators remove posts from feeds for a variety of reasons, including keeping community safe, civil, and true to their purpose. This is news, and I posted this the night of the live stream so that people would be able to see it. Now, I admit and I acknowledge, everybody accuses me of this. I'm based. So when I saw this, it pissed me off, because for all the work we're doing here, we're doing it. Is it self-promotion? No,
kind of, but no.
No, but we're providing a service here. So I texted the moderators at Reddit Chicago with my question, and of course it's not popping up here. Give me a moment. Why is it not popping up? Oh gosh! All right, hang on a sec. Let me open it up here, or I'll read it to you what I wrote them. All right, so I wrote them. I'll bring it over here. Will it open up over here? Oh, maybe not. All right. Well, I wrote them, and I said, my question was on over moderation. I said, you remove every show link I share. What's your aversion to Chicagoans sharing and covering Chicago news? How do these show links violate your guidelines? They responded, Rule 3, photos and video posts only allowed. No buying, selling, promoting, or crowdfunding, promoting your own content in this case. And of course, Reddit's soft 10-1 guideline of community contribution to self-promotion content ratio. Does that sound like we weren't crowdfunding? And I wrote him back. No. I said, you know what? That's bullshit. Someone else posted the video link to the debate coverage, which is clearly newsworthy. Would you cancel Tribune or Block Club stories if shared by the content creators or writers who publish them? As to self-promotion, we're covering news everyone has a right to access to. Your moderation excuses are a lack of judgment are a disservice to the community. And I shared with them, thankfully, someone else found us and shared the link on Reddit Chicago. So look, we're there because someone else posted it. But it's very, I half imagine it's like people behind their keyboards, gatekeepers who like to prevent the flow of information. We were providing live stream coverage to a debate that not a lot of people had access to if they didn't have Facebook in the Reddit Chicago community. Why isn't this newsworthy? And why would you not recognize this is something important that our viewers should know about and be able to follow?
How many of the media outlets here in Chicago, including WGN, NBC, CBS, Fox, all their affiliates, how many of them are live streaming this event? They're probably recording it just to get the highlights. But I remember when Daniel and I would cover these events, and they would only be in there for a few minutes to cover it, and then they'd only just show like maybe 1 or 2 seconds of it on corporate media. We're out there. Hardlands Media was out there in 2019, and as we were out there now in 2020 and during the early stages of 2023, we're covering the full thing. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that want to find out what's happening with these town halls. Where's Lightfoot at? Where's Chewy at? We're doing the job, but I guess obviously people don't like how we're doing it. Well, then if you don't like how we're doing it, show us how it's done then, because obviously we're doing something that you wish you want to do.
Yeah, it's not that they don't like how we're doing it. It's that they don't like that we're doing it. Exactly. Because I've deduced that it is precisely because Lightfoot and Chewy were not there. because what a lot of the gatekeepers and the corporate news and the people in power want you to think is that it's a two-person race between Lori and Chewy. And we are the independent media showing you that there are 9 candidates. They all have opinions, they vary, and we're covering it because we want to hear what all of them have to say. We want to evaluate all the candidates, not just the handful of ones that are handpicked by whoever.
The anointed ones, Ed. Look, the reason Lightfoot and Chewy did not show up is because they feel entitled. They don't have to answer anybody's questions, man. Because they're the elite Democratic candidates that, whether Garcia is basically covering Lightfoot's ass if she loses so the Democrats keep control from a national perspective in Chicago, or he's there to spoil the vote because he's got his congressional seat to walk back to, that he did not abandon to run early, to get in the race early, like all these other candidates who stepped up. Now, I also want to share, these are the moderators of Reddit Chicago. So, if you have an opinion on this and you want to share, hey, why are you censoring news coverage from Chicago Corner? I'm not saying you should do it, but I do want you to know that those are the moderators of Reddit Chicago that don't feel what we're sharing there is newsworthy. And you can pause this, rerun the show later, find that out.
Actually, here's my thought. All right, so to all these people that want to censor Chicago Corner or independent media or people that are covering the election, if you're so easily triggered by what we're doing, all right, fine, show us how it's done. If you think you could do it better, fine, step up, show me.
Show us.
Show me.
I was the one hauling up.
Don't be. Hold on. Don't be some fragile, thin-skinned snowflake giving me your BS, because you know what I expect most of these moderators going to do, especially when Trump's going to run in 2024. A lot of them are going to probably be out there protesting in front of Trump Tower as they're herded in like sheep by the police into the little cattle area where they hear their little jag-off leaders say, we're going to be the resistance, and then they all go home patting themselves on the back. I covered so many of those goddamn protests. Those activists show me jack. So anyone that's easily triggered by what we're doing, what did we do that offended you so much? Tell me, what did we do that maybe triggered your little safe space, little bubble that made you get offended by the work that Jerry and I were doing? We were out there interviewing the mayoral candidates. We were out there on the ground, sacrificing time and so much more.
Yeah, let me also add to that. We rely on super chats, Patreon support, and some revenue from Rockfin to help things going. I'm the one who hauled out $1,500 worth of equipment to cover that night. Out of my commitment to civic service and wanting to be able to share with everybody what was going on and actually have the opportunity for Kit and I to actually face-to-face ask these candidates some questions that we ask on this show that we're like, is anybody else going to ask them these tough questions that some might perceive as gotcha questions, but they're not.
They're not. None of them are.
So through all the effort, the time, the lining it up, the talking to the Copernicus Center, the getting the stable Wi-Fi connection, setting up all the gear, wrangling all the candidates, that's the thanks we get. Oh, you're self-promoting and crowdfunding. Really, motherfuckers? We're not crowdfunding anything. We're sharing the fruits of our hard labor so that people can see what was going on there that weren't able to attend themselves.
And
that really drives me nuts.
Another thing too, Jerry, again, as I said before, 2019, Daniel and I are alone covering the election. And the thing is, very few Chicagoans know that an election's taking place. How much you want to bet? The same amount of Chicagoans don't even know that next year is going to be our city election. And these moderators think that, oh, good, silence, censor, suppress. Way to keep more Chicagoans in the dark.
Yeah. Ed, any final thoughts before I move into our last story?
No, that's it. Look, man, we're covering stuff that nobody else is doing, and people need to know about it. You should stop suppressing us.
Yeah.
Stop. STOP. Jerry, I saw Jerry firsthand set up that entire event location. How dare those moderators do that? Simple. They had no right to do that.
Well, no, I mean, it's just like we do it. So, give us some. It's not about self-promotion. It's like we're trying to provide a service here. So why would you say, oh, well, you can't self-promote or crowdfund? But I will say, as we shift, speaking of self-promotion, we did get some coverage from Block Club Chicago this week. Now, the manager of the Patio Theater, Mark Goals, great guy, great partner. He's the one that I've partnered with in putting this event together so we can collect canned food and toys for people in Chicago and give you a free screening. It's the Patio that said, no, don't worry about half off admission. We'll let people in for free. I've sent press releases out all week long. We've purchased a calendar time at WGN TV and the Reader, thankfully, that's running us. Unfortunately, I didn't get any responses from Block Club Chicago to my press releases to them, but Mark at the Patio, they do have a slate of Christmas movies showing there, and I also want to support what the Patio's doing. This Sunday night, they are showing Frozen. Let me also share from Block Club Chicago's coverage of what's happening at the Patio Theater to give them some shout-outs and props, because we're very, very grateful for their support. Come on, let me get rid of this screen. Okay, so here's what's happening at the Patio, and as it also relates to what we're doing next Friday. New this year, holiday movies at the Patio Theater are back starting this weekend. The Patio Theater is bringing back holiday cheer with its Winter Wonderland movie series that kicks off this weekend. The Christmas program at the Historic Theater at 6008 West Irving Park Road will feature family-friendly movies, performers, and puppeteers, and more holiday fun. Owner Chris Bauman previously said. Now, it took Mark, the manager at the Patio, to get Block Club to cover this, which I'm glad he did. It all begins at 7 p.m. Saturday with a showing of Bad Santa. I love that movie. The theater's annual Frozen holiday tradition returns at 3:30 p.m. Sunday and will show both movies in the Disney series. Puppeteers of the characters, Elsa and Anna, will make the rounds in the theater, which will be decked out with Arendelle decorations, Bauman said. The event is part of holiday fun that kids can cherish, he said. Even seeing my kids run around with 50 to 100 other kids in Elsa, it's so good for them, Bauman said. Those kids are going to remember that. Other movies that will be shown this month include A Christmas Story, and that's on Christmas Day, Home Alone, and Gremlins. You can see the full schedule at the Patio Theater's website. That was all the information that was up there until I had to send a little clarification to Block Club to follow up on my previous press releases. So they did add, the theater team is adding some new twists and events to its holiday schedule this year. Indie news show Chicago Corner will host its first annual holiday food and toy drive at the theater 7 p.m. December 23rd, before the double feature showing of Home Alone and Solstice. Anyone who brings a canned good or toy will get free admission to the event. The toys and food will be delivered on Christmas Eve to the Chicagoland Toy Drive and Greater Chicago Food Depository for families in need. Thank you, Block Club Chicago, for clarifying and adding that, because a big part of this event was to get eyes on what we're doing here so we can do more field events, more field coverage, get out there and talk to people up front and share your questions with them. Also new this year, table seating areas on the main floor for the movie showings. Bauman said the table areas will accommodate up to 4 people. Accessibility is a first come, first serve with no special ticket necessary. We're experimenting with different ideas and are excited to see how our guests react, he said, of the new concept. Folks can reserve a table by asking a staff member when they get to the theater for reservation tabletop display, he said. Apart from holiday events, Bauman has been getting ready for more shows and events at the theater in 2023. Some music acts are already scheduled for February and March, according to the theater's event page. The Patio will also be participating in the new Civil Fest in February, organized by the Chicago Independent Venue League. The 16-day event will have local concerts at various independent venues across the city that will fund staff, mental health programs, and venue safety initiatives, according to the festival's website. Bauman, who used to be a concert promoter, also owns the Avondale Music Hall and other music venues in the suburbs under his music management company, Zenith Music Group. As the Patio's reputation grows, he hopes its roster can also expand. We're going to be having some amazing talent starting to come back through here again. Everyone who's performed here, some are going to be returning, he previously said, but we are also going to be bringing a lot of new talent that hasn't performed here because they've heard about us. Now, Mr. Bauman is the one who's allowing everybody free admission to his theater if you bring canned food or a toy December 23rd. And also, hopefully you get there early enough to be a guest on our live stream, because we're going to start live streaming at 5:30 p.m. up through the start of the show at 7, where there will be a organ accompanied music sing-along as performed by Jay Warren, famous Chicago organist Jay Warren, who also provides organ accompaniment for the Chicago Silent Film Society. And just for those who, might want to know a little bit more about Chicago Corner, if you don't already know about us, since there wasn't a link with our name at that previous article. We do have prominent placement with our event information over at WGN TV, which we paid for. This is what our super chats and all of our money goes to promote ourselves. Promotion is important when you're working for free, trying to bring news to people.
Yeah, right? That's in their community calendar section.
Right. But that's it. I've sent the press release to their news desk, to their entertainment guest. It is not easy getting people to cover something you're doing unless you get past the gatekeepers or unless you're shooting pool with somebody at one of these outlets. So I'll be very frank. We've spent almost $350 on the reader calendar placement and WGN TV because we can't get other organizations, at least over 60 within Chicago that I know did not bounce back, to share our event. That's the power of gatekeeping, as we talk about, whether it's Reddit not showing our shows or allowing our links to go through, or, shadow banning that Hardlands Media has dealt with. Even something as innocuous as us posting a comment on Lori Lightfoot's Facebook chat to be knocked out as spam or potentially offensive when it's clearly not. Big Brother is alive and well everywhere. Okay. One of the reasons I don't like begging for money here or asking you all to join us on Patreon as a supporter, but that money goes to helping us promote and support the show so we can get more people to discover us. We've got 1,475 subscribers now, and we should have a lot more for the effort we put in here. I just calculated, of the 200 shows I've hosted, triple that by 3 with the time of our shows. I've produced about 600 hours of programming here to inform, share information, promote, support guests on our shows. This is why we ask for your support. We're not asking for your support to get rich. We're asking for your support because there are operational expenses, like what we're talking about here. We have to pay to get on community calendars because journalists are not adding links to what Chicago Corner is about, or even picking up the press release regarding our event that is it self-promotion a little bit, but we also are proud of the fact that we're trying to get people to donate canned food and toys to people across Chicago who are struggling, and giving you a free show and a sense of community and bringing the community together in the bargain. That's all I got. I'm grateful that Block Club did mention us. I wish they'd linked us. Hopefully in the future, we can develop a relationship with them that doesn't rely on Mark at the patio getting them to pay attention and us having to send the press release a 4th time with the details, so that we do get a little bit of attention on what we're doing here at the channel. But I did think, look, man, am I based? Maybe. But if I don't speak up for myself and all of us here, what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish, and why we desperately need your support and appreciate your support, most importantly, we love involving everybody in the live stream. This is a Chicago Corner. What does that mean? It's a community. We're here in the corner Tuesday and Friday nights talking about what's going on in Chicago, right? We got Kit, we got Kira, we got Ed, and we have all of you out there. So I know you're all sharing the show and liking it. Please help us a little more. Share our event next Friday night. We don't want to be live streaming and have 15 or 20 people show up. I do think we're getting a little bit more traction. This is our, this is the gambit, right? This is the gauntlet time right now to get more visibility out there, to hope people can come out and help our toy and food drive as well as enjoy the show. And
I also want to add out too, to people who are helping out Hardlands Media too. Look, it really helps out our operational expenses too. There's a lot of work I want to do for Hardlands. I want to see Chicago Corner grow. And look, we have a TV show on Can TV to make it happen as well. And there's so much more I want to take care of in the future. So support Chicago independent media, because Hardlands Media and Chicago Corner are only getting started.
Oh, we're started, and we're beyond crawling. We're walking. I'm very proud of, look, as a 25 plus year professional kid, I was very proud of the fact I knew how to put stuff together with the right infrastructure at the Copernicus Center to make it work. And that's how I want every live stream event to work out. But we did have to bring in some support, and it costs money. And that's what media is all, needs. So anyway, I'm going to stop begging. I'm just going to invite you now to join us. We want to see your faces there. We want to have a good time at the holiday. A lot of people don't have, not everybody, some people don't have family and friends to spend it with. So come out and join us. We welcome you. We want to see everybody there. I'm very, very proud and humbled at the fact I have an opportunity to share my film with all of you in the spirit of doing something good for the community, showing it for free so that we can get canned food and toys for everybody, as well as show Home Alone, 2 Chicago-based Christmas Eve classics.
And I'm pretty excited to see Jerry's movie in an actual theater too.
It plays much better that way, Ed. I'm telling you, especially the night before Christmas Eve. The movie takes place on Christmas Eve, and if you're a Chicagoan, I can't watch my movie any other time of the year. I got to watch it like a dare. If I watch it, and I don't, it's so old, but not to interrupt you, but it does play better in a theater right in the midst of like the spirit of this holiday is amongst us, and it's not denominational. It's about goodwill amongst everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a different vibe seeing it in a theater with a whole bunch of other people who have come to see holiday movies. So definitely, I mean, look, if you got no other plans that day, or even if you do,
change them,
as Kira has said. So, come on out. 6004, is that what it is? 6,000 something. West Irving Park Road.
6008.
West
6008. Okay, yeah, it's a big thing. Says patio on the front of it. You can't really miss it out there. It's a historical theater from the 1920s.
Beautiful.
And it's been restored. You walk in, when you walk in, look up because that ceiling is incredible up
Beautiful
there. And then, it's not too often you're going to have this opportunity. So I would take advantage of it.
Now, we also have linked down in our show notes. Oh, I'll wait for it to load. We also have the event on Facebook to just get a sense of who might be showing up and how many people might show up right now. We have 5 confirmed people going, and 3 of those are me, Ed, and Kira. Now, we do have 25 interested, and I and Kira have been like sharing this event across our thousands of Facebook friends.
And what happens on these things is a lot of times they'll say they're interested and then they end up going. They never confirmed on the thing. So
you don't have to RSVP, but if you find our event on Facebook, let us know you're coming, just so we can be encouraged. Oh, people are actually going to show up.
And I also want to point out too that this commercial, that the video that you worked on, Jerry, is going to be seen on all the channels on Can TV. In fact, here
not the clone variant. No, the clone variant is not on Can TV.
No, not
that's
the clone
for us
variant.
here. That's our little joke here for everybody who understands. Kids got a legion of clones running around.
Actually, no. So let me go and explain this again for everyone that's watching again, because I mentioned this on Hard Lens Media. On the live stream. So what's going on is the air dates for the PSA it's going to be taking place for
Laney's here. Thank you, Laney. Go ahead.
For December 16th all the way through to the 22nd on channels 21, 19, 36. Those are the channels that will be being played on Can TV for our public service announcement.
Bless you, brother. Thanks for putting that through, because that kind of visibility is going to help us across public access TV here in Chicago.
Yep, and I want to give a huge shout out to the person, Dolly, who was part of Can TV, who actually helped make it happen. So thank you so much.
And thanks to Lainey, our friend Lainey Peterson.
Yes.
She played our commercial on WCGO Radio.
Chicago Wine Report that everybody should be tuning into every Sunday morning. I was really privileged to be a guest on the show, and I'm hoping I'll be able to join her and her team there again. Chicago Wine Report, WCGO Radio. Who says radio is a dead format? Not at all. With those call letters, CGO, WCGO, Chicago Radio. I'm not gonna say too much more. I will only tease that I don't know. Maybe there'll be an opportunity for us to promote Chicago Corner there more in the future ourselves. So that's all I'm saying. Gentlemen, any closing thoughts before we depart?
I'm just very happy that our commercial will be playing on Can TV. So it's some good stuff. It'll be playing continuously throughout the 16th through the 22nd.
Laney, yeah, we do. We need a pizza show.
Yeah, we should do one of those.
And Laney is inviting you, Ed, and I'm sure she's also inviting Kit on WCGO. Anyway,
there you go.
So that's all we got, everybody. So as usual, I think this was, as Kit likes to say, a phenomenal show.
Yes, it was.
A lot of great information from our guests. I want to thank Joe and Becky from Northside Democracy for America. I'm going to be keeping my eye on other stuff that they're doing with their forum so we can share here on Chicago Corner. Want to give a huge shout out to Mueze Bawany. Wow, what a dynamic young man. And, as a I'm not a journalist, but as a commentator, I want to be objective. But I will say, as satisfied as I've been here in the 50th Ward with Alderwoman Silverstein Service, I think I'm going to be voting for Mueze. Not that that should influence any of the rest of you, but look, I think everything he had to share stands for itself. What a dynamic vision, what a platform. He's about uniting. He's about doing more here in the ward as well as across the city. And as I said, I hope more progressive candidates across the city use his platform as a template to fine-tune theirs.
Agreed.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I want to thank everybody in the live chat who participated. I want to thank our moderators and friends of the show, and especially Mr. Dominic Palella, who is our first Patreon supporter. I hope all of you can afford $5 a month to help us cover the pressing expenses of what we need here at Chicago Corner to also help acquire extra crew support when we go out in the field. So anyway, that's all I got. As always, please remember as you go into this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, be careful, be safe, be vigilant, watch out for each other, stay safe. And if it's happening on the streets, you will hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Mark your calendars for the 23rd, everybody. We'll see you there. And we will be back on Tuesday with Kira's show, Kira headlining. We'll have some breaking news there that you're not going to want to miss that Kira will share. And I hope you all have a lovely, lovely weekend. Thanks for joining.
Hey, everybody, it's the crew of Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media. I'm Jerry.
I'm Kira.
I'm Kit. And Ed.
Be sure to join your crew at Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media for our first annual food and toy drive at Patio Theater, that's 6008 Irving Park Road on December 23rd, starting at 5:30 p.m.
Folks, this is a big event. It's our first time ever food and toy drive.
We will be collecting shelf-stable canned food and new unwrapped toys to pass along to the Greater Chicago Food Depository and the Chai Gives Back Chicagoland Toy Drive.
This is a chance to do good for the people living here in the city of Chicago. Plus, it's the holiday spirit. So if you don't got it, get it. And if you don't get it, go figure it out.
We begin our live stream here in the lobby at 5:30 p.m. We will be greeting all of you good people that bring us canned food and toy donations.
Make sure to warm up your vocal cords because we start with a sing-along.
Solstice at 7, Home Alone at 8.
All you got to do for free admission to the show is bring
shelf-stable canned food or a toy. Help us help others.
Merry Christmas, and please join us.
It's the clone.
No. Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
They need the clown!
Get your hand off my penis!
Get out. And don't come.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.